What's up, y'all? A lot of faces looking at me right now. It's pretty weird. I was expecting to have like a couple people. There's like 33 people are coming. Everybody from the East Coast wants to change the time. So sorry about that. I am not a teacher. I am not an instructor. I am not good at this. It's not what I do. So bear with me. I got a few things I want to show you, a few things I'm excited about, and I think I'm just going to start with like a bare blank project and just kind of show you how I set it up. Is there anybody, I guess I would ask, is there anybody that doesn't know, that doesn't use LiveGrade at all? Is there anybody that like never has used it? No, you all use it.
Well, thank God.
Good. I'm like, I don't want to read the manual. I don't want to go through and do every small little detail. I just want to kind of show how I do it. And I'm positive that none of us do it exactly the same. But I'm really interested to learn how you guys do it too. If there's a better way, if you think I do it wrong, you're wrong. I do it right. But so I'll share my screen, which should look like that. And so Jamie, you'll let me know if anything is kind of technically going wrong here, but hopefully you can see my screen and not my face. I'm turning my face.
Good.
Okay. I can't see the hand raises or if you want me to speed up or something. So just chime in if you want me to do something different than I'm doing. So I just started this project. It's nothing. I have no shots, no folders, no devices, just the kind of bare bones when you start LiveGrade. So I would, if I was starting a new project, I would, I don't know what this shooting day thing is. I would probably just get rid of that as soon as I could. Start a folder called, I don't like how it starts with a folder and a bin. Like I'll make a folder and a bin, but I usually date my folders. So today would be the year, the month, and the date. And then I would say like day one. If I was on an episodic or anything that was going to be something where I wanted to either refer to the date or the day, I just kind of want to have that information right there. And so I was hoping I could there, get rid of this. So then inside there, I would start making bins. So what I like to do is make a bin per scene that we shoot. So if we're shooting scene 101, we're starting off on that scene. I see that there's going to be a bunch of scenes on the call sheet that we're going to do, but I kind of wait to make a new folder until we actually start that scene. So maybe I'll make like a 201 and a 301 just for the hell of it. Just so like, now one thing I'll do is I'll create, and you'll see why later, but I'll make like a separate folder that looks like that with the year, month, day one. And then because episodic usually has breaks, film break and a wrap break, where, you know, obviously you're going to send footage at or after lunch to post who's waiting to get going on it, and then again at wrap. So I'll do like break, and then you'll see why I do that later. That's for like reporting and stuff. So let's add some slots and devices. I have a couple of box IOs hooked up, and they are in dual channel mode. If you're not familiar with the box IO, this is kind of the interface for how to control them over the network. So I have them in dual channel, and channel 1 is on SDI1, channel 2 is on SDI2, and I have it both set up for legal video here. But if you're going to do Sony or something else, then that's where you'd want to get into looking at changing it. But the fact that I'm able to control the box IOs here tells you that I'm connected to it. So then when I go here and I go to add a device, it should be no problem. It's just popped right up. Right. it knows, it sees the box IO. Do I want to do channel 1 or channel 2? I'll do both channels. So that'll create 2 slots. We'll call it, this is A. I call it, I name it right here, A for the A camera. And then B for the B camera. After you type something in here, make sure you hit tab or else it won't know. Record, return or something. Also, while I'm in here, I'll add my, I have a capture device, a Blackmagic HD Mini, and some video kind of lined up here. So I can add that and then you'll see it show up here. So that's pretty much all set. I do have my box IOs configured with enable frame grab, and then they can continuously refresh frame grab. So you'll see that now you can see an image. I have a little 7Q hooked up with like a 6 or 7 minute video clip from that job I did corporate. And
Chris Bolton has a question.
Oh yeah.
I was going to say, it's not so much a question, but just one thing with the live capture is if you're using like video transmitters, and if it flips over to that sort of 720p screensaver thing, it can sometimes, if you're using box IOs, it can kick all your box IOs off your network.
If I'm using
I'm just saying, if you're using that live metadata update function, and for the frame grabs, when it refreshes, and if you're refreshing with a 720p signal on there, it can sometimes kick all your box IOs off the network. So just a general warning for that.
Okay. I'll go ahead and roll this little 7Q here so we can kind of see. If I highlight my A camera slot, you can see that it is able to capture either stills or video right now of the live video that's rolling. B camera slot, you'll see here, is just refreshing every 4 seconds, because my Blackmagic Ultra whatever you want to call it, HD Mini, is only in the A camera slot and not in the B. So if I go to the B camera slot, this window, my viewer window, will reflect kind of what's going on here with the box IO, only updating every 4 seconds. Later, I'll show a way to kind of get that to auto switch the device over, which can be kind of interesting if you want to record different slots or whatever. Did I see a question pop up, or? Sorry, I'm still figuring out Zoom. I don't know how it works. Somebody stop me if you got a question. All right, cool. This slot metadata here, where you can pick what you want to see, depends on what I'm doing. There's not a whole lot that I really need to usually see in here. I don't really need to know what the white balance is for the scene usually, because the on-screen display of whatever camera you're using just says it right on the screen. So I don't usually keep track of real numbers, clip numbers. So if I hide all the entries, I can get rid of that. Let's just go back here. What I will do sometimes is lens model, focal length. That's if I'm going to pay real close attention to filters that we're using. Different lens sets that we're using if I'm going to create like lens color presets and stuff like that, which I will get into in a little while. But I know that some of you are going to do this differently than me, but there's not usually in this little kind of portion of the screen anything that helps me too much. I would love to find out if there was some stuff that helped me. But a lot of times I'll just leave that blank, really. What's next? So
hey, hey, real quick, just to interject there, Aaron. I just discovered this the other day that with master primes and like the newest Bolt firmware, frame rate, tilt roll, white balance, the lens manufacturer, focal length, etc., all come in live over that metadata.
Yeah, and it'll still record that metadata. Like when you create a shot or roll a video or whatever, it'll display it up here in this little, what do you want to call this? The shots library.
Yeah.
If you want it to, you can turn all that stuff on and off. I just don't really usually need to see it down here. Like this little portion having information for me to look at hasn't helped me before in the past, although I know that the live metadata will show up right there.
Yeah, Brandon Heaslip has a question.
Go.
On the just quick question on the general take of everybody. Is there anything in that doesn't come through or pass that you guys would want to come through and or pass via hardware? Because there are limitations to what SDI will pass and not pass, but is there anything important that everybody uses all the time or would like to use all the time if it was passed through various devices?
I would appreciate a real number because I like to keep tabs, and that's how I deliver my CDLs. And I name my CDLs with the real number in.
Yeah, that would be good. I could see how that would be handy for sure. A lot of the stuff I keep track of as far as naming CDLs is not roll number, but just scene number or episode number, sometimes take number. Let's get into that. Let's get into see how it says ACAM, no scene, no take. Okay, well, let's add a scene and take. We're on 101.
This is going to be the most divisive topic we have tonight.
So over here in the global, this is the global metadata field. I'm going to add what kind of bits of metadata that I'm going to manually be changing all the time. I'm not usually changing what season we're shooting, but I will do episode. I will do what scene we're on, and I sometimes will do take if I think that things are going to change drastically between takes. But a lot of times for episodic, it's just the episode and the scene are what really help me. And I'll just, let's say we're doing episode 306. Oops, 306, right. And then we're doing scene 101. They do have this shot slot you can do, which I'm told is meant to be, okay, now we're doing Apple, now we're doing Bravo, now we're doing Charlie, now we're doing Delta. I don't use it. I leave shot completely out just because I don't think post understands what that means. I think when they see a scene number, it's 101, 101 Apple, 101 Bravo, 101 Charlie, you know what I mean?
Hey,
so
Mike Romano has a question.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, I knew it was going to happen at some point.
Can we hold all of Michael Romano's questions?
He's got a 3-minute time limit.
All right, go ahead.
Come on, Mike, you're up.
I think he got mad. He hung up.
All right, continue on.
All right. Yeah, I know he has a way. He uses the shot slot, and he's mentioned it before, but I can't remember exactly why he does it. But I know he has a good reason for it, and I'm anxious to be reminded what that is. So now that I've set my global kind of metadata, get going here. This little thing right here, ACAM_101_ no take, that is like a clip identifier, which I hate, really. I don't really understand having clip identifiers. Hopefully someone's going to explain it to me in a way that makes sense.
I use it, but I'll show you later how I use it, and it's reluctantly.
So
I use it as well, because I find when you get into trying to differentiate a CDL's difference between A, B, and C and D cameras, that's the only thing that really tells you if you're borrowing the Bravo CDL and putting it on a camera and vice versa. But it is annoying.
It's a good use for it. Yeah, that's a good use for it. So then, and I think that probably you also kind of go in here and do a manual shot identifier, clip identifier, custom, which you can use all these little bits of metadata if you have them to create your shot identifiers. So usually I'll do like episode, the scene, and the camera, so that it'll look like, you know, any CDL that I create or any look that I create will just be named after the scene, the episode, and which camera it was. Of course, I don't do it like that. I'll do it like ep for episode, and then I'll drop the episode token on there, underscore, maybe SC for scene. If you have a good thing going with posts, maybe you don't need the EP and the SC, but I find that it's kind of like takes the guesswork out of it for them later. Like, what are these numbers and underscores? What am I looking at? Oh, that says ep, that says scene. Okay.
Yeah.
And then I'll
Jason,
do like
Jason Johnson has a quick question about what you're talking about.
Hey, so my question is, when you're working with VFX, do you put the X before the 101, or do you just leave it as 101?
Whatever script he tells me to do. I take scene numbers directly from the script supervisor.
No, I mean, not like taking scene numbers directly from it, but I've had instances on set where post wants the X, and sometimes they don't want the X because putting the X there puts it at the bottom of the bin, and so if you're shooting multiple scenes a day, it's going to look like something is missing. So you just typically do whatever is done on set.
Yeah, because I don't know, maybe it's because I either call it, you know, starting with episode number, as I have right there. So the episode wouldn't start with the X, right? You're talking about the scene, like X100 would be the scene, right?
But it would still put it down further than 102, 103, and all those.
I suppose it would. You're saying that in your experience, post takes an issue with that?
On some shows that I've been on, I'm just curious what other people are doing, because I tend to just leave it off now.
I'm curious what other people are doing as well. I don't know. I've never heard post say anything like, we don't like the way you're naming your CDLs because they're putting them out of order. I think if they just, I think what they probably do is they just see that all my CDLs are named with the same kind of naming scheme, like I'm setting up right now, and then they can just look in the bin where it says X100 or whatever, and then they can plug it in.
Yeah, I feel the same way, and I feel like if they're going off of the script notes, it's going to have the X there anyway.
Correct. Right.
When I personally set this up, I set it up really similar to you, Picot, but I try to think to myself, like, if I, like, say I died and someone new came in and had to take a look at all my CDLs, you know, and there was no document to tell them about what I did, the CDL should be explicit, show, episode, scene, camera.
Right.
And like, if you're not in the room to defend yourself, your file naming should defend yourself. That's how I look.
Right. And the last little bit that I do is I say what camera it is, but there is no camera. So where is it taking that information from? Right here, the little slot name. I still always get confused by which one's the label and which one's the name, because when you add these slots, it's always going to have an A, and it's always going to have a B, and it's always going to have a C, and then it's going to have whatever you named it. And so I named it A and B. Does anyone know definitively which one's the label, which one's the name?
I think you want to use label, which is the one you've already preset. And
That's what I labeled it.
Yeah, and my reason is, like, sometimes I'll get on a unit where you have like X camera or W camera or whatever, And so if you name it within LiveGrade like you did when you determine your slots, it'll name it accordingly like that.
I think you want to use slot label, because if you don't, it will add A or B, and even if you have X or Z camera in there,
right?
So you want slot label.
That's what I mean. I don't. It's just the verbiage, because I labeled it and I also named it. So which, I don't know. It's like to me that's a strange kind of. Why don't you just call it? Why don't there just be like a camera slot right there? Anyway, that's something I would change if I had my brother.
Chandler Tucker has a question. Go ahead, Chandler.
Go.
And I just want to chime in and say that I go off of slot label because on a lot of shows, the A and Charlie camera are separate bodies, but it's the same operator. So for me, I have that, like, for example, the Terra deck may just jump between bodies. So I can just quickly change the slot label and rename that without having to redetermine where my feed's going to which box IO.
Right.
So, yeah.
Exactly. So, and it's kind of one of those things I admit that I always get backwards 50% of the time, but I do it exactly like you're doing it too. It's just when I'm first starting it off, I'm always like, okay, is this that I'm typing in, is that, am I naming it right now or am I labeling it right now? Like, well, the same thing. I don't know.
It depends.
So right now I'll call it B camera right there. And then right here, right. So we know it's labeled. So there you go. Because it changed it here.
Hey, Strawberry has a question, if he can figure out how to unmute himself. Here you go. I unmuted you, Strawberry.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Up in the left corner.
Hey. So I don't use clip identifier whatsoever because it doesn't have the same wildcards available to it that you do on export of CDLs.
Sure.
So if you selected a clip, a shot, whatever the hell they're calling it these days in there. If you selected a still image, you went to export that as a save as shot or whatever, to get a CDL and a still out of it, and then you do custom wildcards there, you can actually select camera as the thing there. But that is populated from the label field. It's kind of a disaster, and it is not very clear, but that's what's going on there. Right.
But like, is it Chandler? We were just talking about that? I would prefer not to use it either, but I think for just being able to, for my eyes to look down and see what it is I'm looking at right here.
I just left cam off.
Sure.
For that. Like I do have that turned on, but all it tells me is scene and shot. Shot I do use, and I just put the letter in there.
Right. So that's, seems to me like both ways work, right?
Hey, real quick, let's hear from Brandon. But if anyone doesn't know, he works for ColorFront. And so we've talked about how ColorFront wants the CDL naming to come into them. This might be a good chance for him to chime in.
It's kind of either or. I know this is a big thing, but I think that as long as, for us at least, I think the biggest thing is that we do, we have some semblance of the original clip name, which is obviously sometimes the toughest thing that doesn't come through metadata for you guys to kind of automate, because everybody's like scene, take, all that information. But as a Dailies provider and operator, this clip that shows up is A001C001, and without script notes, without camera reports, without any of that, the scene and take information basically means nothing in the sense of automation and speeding things up, not in replacement of anybody, just the idea of like, how do I make all of this faster? And I don't know if any of that comes, I know for a fact, none of that comes through in the CDL. So sometimes the scene and take name is great, but at the same time, there's still the argument for clip name. So it's a delicate balance between the two, especially for a provider from our point.
Are you saying you want the CDLs named like A032_C7?
Yes, for automation purposes, yes, because then I can just point to a big folder. I know. I just blew it all up. Sorry, but from the Dailies perspective of turning and burning and getting things done, it does make it like, oh, here's my folder full of 7,000 CDLs. I know that one's for, you know, A001, C01 to 6, or whatever it might be. So, but I know that's not ideal in general.
That's not the craziest thing ever, though, if that stuff is coming over the metadata, because then for onset use, everyone onset can refer to it as scene and take information. And if that metadata is also available, then that can be used in the wildcard export to go to Dailies in the CDL name.
And we've been working with manufacturers specifically, not just AJA, because, you know, we're partners, Teradek, everybody, to be like, this stuff needs to pass through your boxes. Maybe not this gen. We know this gen is long past due, but the general thing is that passed, the cameras spit it out. Every camera spits it out in different ways. But if it went through, then, you know, and that's something that on a ColorFront manufacturing side, we can actually talk to all the manufacturers and say, you're sending it, right? Cool. And then I can talk to Bram and say, cool, your box needs to pass it. AJA, your box needs to pass it. You know, Fuji, if you're, or WoW Entertainment, your box needs to pass it. Whoever it is, we can work with to make sure that their FPGA will just push it through on HVANC or normal bank or whatever channel they want to pass it on. So a CDL, I see the question, CDL for every clip is difficult, but you know, you can block it in our software. I can say these next 10 CDLs go to these 15 clips, or this one CDL goes to this entire roll. So, you know, it's just, you know, but if seed and take is how everybody really wants to do it, then we just can't import the CDL until after we match the metadata, and then we get into the whole toilet bowl of metadata on set.
Let's circle back to that, but show us what you exactly want, and we'll think about it.
100%. But I don't want to. I'll stop my diatribe and we'll just continue.
All right.
This is
Andy Lemon, go ahead.
Really quick question for Brandon. Looking at this, if would one way to do this be, you know, say it's A1 clip 1, you have that as a CDL, and then you get no CDL until you get A1 clip 22, and then tell the software to say use A1 clip 1 CDL for everything up until the next one that it receives. Is that something?
Oh, yeah, that's totally doable. Yeah, that's a Python script. That's easy.
Because that might be a way that, I mean, that's kind of how a lot of stuff ends up getting spit out. Once we get the look right, I say that's for the whole setup, and then the next one comes at the next setup. That wouldn't change our work too much. And if we had that metadata, we could include that in the file names, you know?
Exactly. Yeah, and that would be easily doable. Like, that's not a big thing at all from the applying perspective.
Andy Lemon, you're next.
Hey, Brandon. So is this something that you could put together a best practices for ColorFront? So if we found that we were dealing with a post-production company that was using ColorFront, you could give us a line-by-line setup that worked best with the software that you represent.
Yeah, 100%.
And, you know, just maybe something that you could put up on DIT-WIT as kind of a best practice for y'all. And then also within that, if you have that list of equipment providers that are not passing through that metadata, if you include those people, maybe as a group, we can put pressure on those people to pass through that metadata, because ultimately it's going to help everybody save money, save time, and, you know, make post faster, make the DITs, you know, more useful on set in saving time and money.
Yeah, I can tell you specifically, AJA, I've been dealing with this specifically since September, getting them cameras, testing bodies, passing metadata, new firmware, making sure everything is consistent with their firmware, with LiveGrade, with ColorFront, you know, to make sure that everything is passing accordingly. And I've been talking to Bram, like, hey, on whatever is happening potentially next, making sure that they're on the same page to everybody's passing that stuff, Teradek, all the guys to be like, look at this all needs to wirelessly, hardwired, whatever, we need to find a spot in that transmission for it. So
Are they
but if there-
responsive or are they
100%.
Oh, are they?
No,
Okay, good.
everybody's been really, really, due to our partnership with AJA, it's really easy to step on their dick and say, do it. But with everybody else, it's a touch and go, but everybody's been, no one said like, no, I don't really want to do that. Like everybody's been,
That's right.
yes, we understand next generation. It's just like, there's always the balance of, yeah, but all these people have like $15 IOs each and I don't want to burn them too hard. But at the same time, they know it's like the next generation and there are new FPGAs and new technology that allows them to have more information across that FPGA to pass through. And then there's what matters and what doesn't matter, and helping them differentiate what actually matters for people actually in the trenches. And
Yeah, so
life is going to get better.
So give us that list of what matters with the color front stuff, and then we can kind of push that to make sure that that's in our metadata, and then that with our manufacturers that's going through.
I definitely will. I'll put it together.
Yeah, it's cool. But it's great that you accept it. I mean,
we're trying. It's evolving. Like it's a crazy. Everybody knows the limitations of CDLs, right? That's a big thing.
Yeah.
It's 10 numbers. Doesn't really tell you anything. There's no additional metadata, and you get down a different road, which I'm sure we'll cross later in the conversation. But yeah,
well,
you guys need
15 years ago. It was it was great then.
Yeah.
Yeah, but anything you guys
let's get back on topic, guys.
Yeah. Anyway,
sorry to steal your thunder, but we'll come back to it.
Yeah, 100%.
Picot, the floor is yours, bud.
Thanks. I was the Zoom interface wasn't letting me unmute. Really cool topics. I'm glad to hear all you guys talking about that stuff. I think basically what I'm trying to get through here, which I'm doing probably a little too slowly, is just like a very basic kind of what I would do at the beginning of a job, just setting it up, which I'll try to speed this up. It shouldn't take much longer, but just for those who are involved who don't use LiveGrade a lot, just to kind of get an idea of why things are important to set up right at the beginning. So I'm trying to remember where I was next. We got our devices set up. We got all this stuff right here. So if I have a video coming in from a camera feed, there we go. You should hopefully all see this. Do you guys see this video right down here of the live video playing?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's just a shot from something I did recently. And what I always want to do is I want to route the log signal into my LUT box and into any capture device that I have. Ultra Studio HD Mini is what I'm using right now. So that way when I'll get rid of that little view. Let's bring up the color view. So let's say I want to put a look on this. This was some red footage, so I'm going to use the red kind of LUT that we use, the show LUT, which was this roll-off 3. And then I want to just maybe add some contrast or take away some contrast maybe and cool it off and make them super mad green. I don't know, it doesn't matter. So I'm adjusting these parameters right now with the hardware, actually a MIDI controller. So this is what I would be doing if I were watching the live footage and I was doing live grading. I'm grading live. I can change my saturation, take it all the way down to black and white. It's a little bit bigger. So whatever, it doesn't matter. But that is my CDL and my LUT that I have. And there's the order that they're in, CDL before the LUT. So then as we're shooting, I like to take a lot of stills. So I have my Stream Deck, set up. Hopefully you guys all got your Stream Decks in order. I have, grab a camera, boom, grabbed it. So a lot of times what I like to do is kind of grab it every time they look a certain direction or they stand up or they go into a different lighting setup or whatever. I want to just kind of, every take, I'm always grabbing a lot of stills. It doesn't cost anything as far as storage. I keep a separate drive hooked up to this computer, 500 SSD is what it's called, and that's where all of my LiveGrade grabs, screen recordings, whatever. So if I wanted to, for many various reasons, could be helpful, I can record it because I have that HD mini hooked up. So I can tap record and I get the little red line right here. So now I know that it's recording the A camera. If I switch over to B camera, I can't record because there's no recording device. There's no capture device assigned to that slot. It's just the box IO, and the box IO does not record video. But I can still be grabbing things from the B camera. And you see the B camera doesn't have any LUT or any CDL or anything, so it's just the log. But I can switch back to A, see what's going on. While recording or not recording or whatever, I can be turning my CDL on and off with the grade bypass happening right here. Get that out of the way. And this, I'm just toggling this with the Stream Deck, but on off that, and then with another button, I can look at my original log, and then of course false color on log, or false color with my black and white, or not with black and white. And everything that you're seeing in this window right here is very easily then piped back into my video router and then sent out to one of my grading monitors.
Can we talk about how important it is to capture video and be able to play it back into your router?
To capture video and play it back into the router? You mean like if I want to display it for the DP, if they want to see a take back or something like that?
Yeah, for lighting reference, continuity, etc.
Yeah, well, that's why I usually take all the stills. I'm more of a stills kind of grabber for that, because I kind of, maybe that just like in my head, kind of subconsciously, but also subconsciously, I know where I'm hitting grab. I'm not just grabbing things like this. I wouldn't grab this. I don't need this. But I'm only grabbing the important stuff, and I can go back and find it quickly just by kind of scrolling through. But the same thing, if you wanted to record video, sure, if that's how you want to do it. I'll go ahead and pause the live video coming in just so it's not confusing for a second. But here you can see the type is this little rectangle. That means it's a still. If I go down and find there, it's triangle. That means that's a recording. So if I want to see the recording, I got to put it in the, I can either use it as a reference, which is I have a split screen here, and I can scrub through that video recording right here. Of course, I can make that basically almost full screen if I wanted to and scroll through it, or alternatively, I can just send it to the library bin. So I have that. I'll open that up a little bit. So the library bin, I have this little L library button kind of highlighted. You can unhighlight it, and then you can, if you do that, you can scroll through and nothing changes. But if you highlight that, then whatever you scroll through kind of throws it into your library slot. So then you can see whatever I'm highlighting up here in the shots library is being, since I have the library slot activated, it's showing that in my viewer window. So let's go find that video clip. There's a video clip. So then I can, if somebody wants to essentially watch playback or go to a certain point. Let's see him when he's laying down. Okay, cool, I can scrub right to that. Let's see him when he sits right back up. Okay, I can go right to that. And then this would be something in the preferences I would want to have external video turned on, and check mark there, and make sure the all the frame rates and all that video format is how you want it, and then have that video piped into your router so that you can send that to any other destination you want. So it's piped into an input on the router. I'll just show you. Hold on a second. Not mail, but this. I use a AJA 3232, and it has a web UI here. So essentially, if you were looking at the front of the router control panel, it would look like this. So I have the Blackmagic HD Mini in as a destination. That is what I added right here. That's basically the in, the capture. And so that needs to be a destination. And I have it as, right, my A cam, because I have the 7Q right now hooked into the A camera slot in. So because the HD Mini can capture as well as playback. So then up here under source, I have this one, HD Mini out. So I can say like, all right, on the DIT-1 monitor or DIT-2 monitor, whatever. Okay, boom, highlight that. So right now I just have I have a little monitor hooked up right there, just showing me what I'm doing. So so I'm just routing that over. Anytime I want, I can flip over from live video over to what's coming out of the HD Mini. So to use that in this sense, to just play back live video is helpful. But also what I will use it for is, and I'll play video here. Let me go back to the beginning. So let's say here's my live stream coming in, right? And we're looking at take 3 or whatever. All right, let me see, right now when he's sitting up, I want to see this wide shot as a reference. Okay, cool. And then obviously, like I said, this viewer window can be piped back into my router. So now on the 25-inch monitor, I'm watching the live video coming in with my still overlaid. And obviously this is perfect for being able to line up shots, being able to match lighting and color. Before it was a little more contrasty, okay, or whatever, less contrasty. All right, well, I can be changing my live look while looking at my my overlay there. Of course, you can come from the right, left, you switch it over. I want to see her instead. Let's line it up to more like her. Okay. I want to be way contrastier than it was before. Okay, great. There you go. Overlay can be handy too if you really need to line up something that we shot earlier. You got this little wipe back and forth. But I use that all the time. Like every shot, pretty much, I have a reference from either the master or the reverse or something kind of just lined up and ready to throw up there if I want. I usually just use a wipe.
Hey,
yeah, go ahead.
This is
Sorry,
a good opportunity to talk. This is a good opportunity to talk about anticipation.
Yeah, right. So we're doing scene 101. Now we're doing. Let's say we shot scene 102 2 weeks ago. All right, whatever. We previously shot scene 102, and the thing we're doing today is scene 101, and it has to line up. The DP is going to want to see how it looked. Maybe wiped like this right next to what we're about to shoot. So, hey, what side of the room was he on? Hey, how intense was the contrast on his face when we shot scene 102? Okay, I got that. Over here in the shot library, I'm going to have a dated folder, the date we shot it, the scene folder. I can go right to it. There's my scene. I want to see it from B camera. Oh, okay, you can go to the B camera right there. Bam. I think the shortcut key is F if you don't already have it, but loads the still right in there, and you're referencing it. And of course, you can just go straight to the library too for the full screen if you want to route the full screen like to your B monitor screen or something like that. So yeah, always anticipating what the DP may want to look at, what we've already shot. Go ahead.
So I was just wondering if you get confused with all those stills in there, and those are all stills and looks, right? So do you get confused making sure you export all of those CDLs out at the end of the day or for your break or wrap drive?
Okay, so what I do, yeah, good question. What I do is, and I believe I got this idea from Mr. Romano, is I use this rating system here. So as we're going along and we're coloring, we're live grading, and we're capturing stills to our heart's delight, and everything is good. And then they say like, all right, cut, moving on. We're gonna Apple's up. We're gonna go to 101 Apple. At some point, I will go back through my stills, take a look at them, find which one I think is a good screenshot. Okay, that one's pretty good right there. And I really like the color that I did on that. So whether or not all these previous grabs were completely different colors, and then at the end he goes, I really wanted it to be to have some color in it. Forget the black and white. Let's go back to the color. Okay, fine. I can update that. However they say. So that happens a lot, right? The DP right after the scene, and we move on. Hey, make that last thing more contrasty. Oh shit. Okay, right. So let's make it more contrasty, like they said. And right. Do that. Okay, cool. So I've just retimed the shot by looking at it in my library. I can tap update, which is right here, and it updates it. I can go back to my slot and reapply that look right here just by hitting apply or by double clicking it. Then if he's like, just do it for the whole scene. Okay, I can select that camera, the whole scene, and I can update all those. Now they're all in the right color that they want. This was the one I liked right here, I believe. So I'll give that a 5-star rating. That's definitely what I think is the best still image, whatever. I'll also go through and find other parts of the scene that are, that's kind of a good shot of both of them. Anything that I think is a good lineup of any point of the shot, I'll give it like a 3-star rating. And I'll tell you why I do this. The 5-star ratings get duplicated. So now you see this is the same exact thing as this. And I'll drag this into my break folder. So hopefully you understand what I'm doing there is by the time lunch break happens, I want to have one still from each scene, from each camera that played. They'll all have this 5-star rating because I know they're the best ones. So let's say we did 20 setups, there'll be 20 stills. The number of setups we do match the number of stills that I grab. Stills, shots, looks, whatever. It's all the same exact thing. This all contains all that information. It contains the thumbnail, it contains the CDL, it contains the LUT if I want it to, if I wanted to export a cube. So then after I have all my shots in there for the break, then when I want to do my report, send it along with the drive. The report is already named. The report is named after the bin that I had it in. Sorry about that. I don't know where that little window went. Yeah, nice. Tiny little laptop screen here. And I can save that wherever I want it. And it's named this. And it's got everything that I have active right here. These little, anything I have active, checkbox for metadata. So this is where I can report on tilt and roll and anything that comes through with the clip, I guess, if it comes through the SDI, or anything that I added manually will show up. I'll just make a report to the desktop just for the hell of it.
Hey, just want to interject real quick.
Yeah.
Hey, Tyler, just to answer your question as well. I know I do things a tiny bit different than Picot here, but I usually make a CDL bin and a reference bin per day or per break, like morning or afternoon. CDL is just a pristine bin just for the looks, right, that are being made. And then in the reference bin, I put a screenshot in the chat window. In the reference, I just take tons and tons of reference images, and I'll go through that when I have time, just delete the ones that I hate. And then at the end of the day or at the end of the break, it's super easy to just export only the CDLs and then export the reference images separately. That's kind of how I go about it.
Yeah. On my jobs, I've been doing like exporting stills to a desktop folder. and just taking hundreds of stills and then just creating the one CDL look per camera in the folder. But I definitely see the advantages to the way you guys do it also.
The one thing to remember too, though, is if you're doing stuff like how we have it set up here, you want to be able to search over months, right? And to get the search feature as it currently works, which is not great. You like in Picot's library, you'd want to click the root folder, and then you can actually search by scene numbers, and you'd find CDLs and or images. You know what I mean? So you want them to be inside your project, not saved to like a desktop.
Can I do that? Right, the show, right, whatever the show name is, and then because then I can go here and then I can search scene 101 or 101, and then it's going to show everything from within my show that's scene 101. Or I could type in scene 101A and nothing will show up because I haven't done a scene 101A. That's what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, and this is
being able to use this
limitation.
search window.
Yeah, this LiveGrade needs to make this search a hell of a lot better, but this is a workaround. And I see Strawberry with his hand up. We should let him talk for 3 minutes.
So I just wanted to add to this. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I just wanted to add to this something that's a little different than the way I do it to Picot's thing. And this comes back to this big problem as to how many stills is there, one CDL per still, because that's really how LiveGrade wants you to do it, versus one CDL with many stills. A lot of the DPs and people that I work with want to see numerous stills. If we come back to match, I don't want to end up with one still to represent a setup. I want to have lots of them. So what I end up doing is I do the rating system, but I give 5 stars. I mean, it could basically be a checkbox. You know what I mean? I don't really need it to be a rating thing. I give 5 stars to any still that I want to export. And then at the end, I leave them all together. I don't separate CDLs and stills because just like Picot said, they really are one and the same, right? When you have a still stored in there, you also have all of your grade data and the metadata associated with it. It's really one thing. You have a log image, you have a graded image, you have all the steps you took to create that graded image and all the associated metadata in that one entry in your column data in your library. But what I did separately to get around this problem, because I found it was confusing to spit out a pile of CDLs when we wanted to send a pile of stills, but we really only wanted one CDL per setup. So what I did was I created a bash script that sits in an automator action that allows me to right click on the break folder after I spit out all these stills and CDLs, and it deletes all the extraneous ones. It only takes one from each setup, right? It's just a logic statement that is pseudo RM, remove shit, goodbye, right? So that was a really kind of complicated workaround for that. And I see Picot is really sending one CDL per setup, per camera, per lens, My question for everybody else though is how is everyone else dealing with that? Are they doing it the same way? Are they sending a CDL per everything? I know Brandon's gonna say automation wise, there should be one for every clip. How does everyone else handle this kind of stuff? Silence.
Similar to Picot, I just have in a break. So I'll set up a day, and then beneath the day, I'll set up 3 folders. One's the AM break. One is a stills or reference folder, which is basically the bin that has everything extra that I'm not sending, and then a PM break. And so I'll just, similar to the rating system, I'll rate whatever I want to go to the break, and then I'll drag over the good ones or the 5 stars into the break folder, and then everything else gets dumped into the day folder or the reference folder as just that's everything else I took for the day. And then I'll just export the one break folder, the PM folder, and that's what goes to post.
That's kind of what I do as well. I do keep those separate folders, but what I end up doing after I have the folder, so I'll have like I look at Picot's screen right here, and he's got, the date, day 1, whatever, and that's what they shot. I would have an AM and PM as well. So I have break 1, break 2, you know, and then within that, I do a bin for each and every setup, and then the bins within folders for scenes, and I drop all of those into a massive directory called scenes, right? And then that way, all that stuff is organized in there, because like recall, especially in features and episodic stuff, can get really intense, needing to like pull something up and be able to very, very quickly say, you know, yeah, the look that I've got on here is exactly what we did when we shot the turnaround. I just slapped it right on top, and be able to do that super quick, you know.
So do you take, so like Picot has it right now, do you then take like 401 and 501 and then put them in overall directory that just says scene?
So basically what I would have is I have a top level, hold on, can you hear me now? Okay.
Yeah.
I have a top level directory called scenes, right? And then within that I would have a folder, or I guess it's a folder, a directory called 101. And within that would be a bin, which is with the star, you know, that purple with the star. And that would say 101. And then there'd be one next to it called 101 Apple, 101 Baker, et cetera, you know. That way it's all in there. And that's kind of what the thing with like X-ray at the front is like stupid. And, you know, I wish we had a prefix field, which we could then decide to mangle any way which way we like. And that's why I use the shot field, so that everything is independently searchable in a column. After setting up interrelational databases, I found that, you know, you really kind of need that for sanity, and you never know when LiveGrade's going to fix this disaster, you know. So then it would be useful at that time. You wouldn't have to change the way that you do your work, you know.
Yeah. Hey, we're going to go to Chris Bolton real quick.
Oh, hey. If you guys don't have the chat window open, I threw one of the way I do things for the grabs and the scene information is look for the bolts grabs.png. Reference to the X and V, if you want to add that as a separate sidecar to your scene information, you can make custom columns in LiveGrade.
Yeah, I've played with that before. One of the problems I had was that, I don't know about the recent versions, so it does not have all the same wildcards accessible in all of the places that you go to use wildcards. So when you go to export, sometimes, in the past anyways, I think the custom ones worked most of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just kind of weird how it worked. That is a great idea though, and I think I would probably start using that to do a prefix.
Dave Satin, you're up.
Just want to mention one thing about the frame grabbing LiveGrade is that it only really works properly in 709 color space. I've had to go back to using desktop video with my Blackmagic hardware because I haven't done a 709 job in like 2 years, and it does some weird color science to it if you're working in 2020 or any other color spaces. So it's especially bad in P3. So just, you know, word to the wise, this is all really fascinating to me, but none of this would work in my world at all.
It's not a great solution, but you can reflag your frame grabs using another piece of software, so you can reflag them for different color space if necessary. It sucks, but you could.
Totally. I mean, all this dragging and dropping is interesting to me. My DP's like, you know, why don't you look at the screen? I don't know.
Is that something that Pomfort is working on? Are they aware of this, Dave?
No, it's far beyond their understanding. I'm sad to say. I'm kind of like stopped complaining about it because
not as far as you think, Dave. Not as far as you think.
Excellent.
We are stepping on them with Captain Bill Feitner to get them to understand how important the relation is in the stills world to the color space of what you're attempting to ODT, basically. So don't know when, but we are stepping on them pretty hard right now.
They are aware with it. I mean, with the advent of doing SilverStack Lab and have an option for output color space flagging, they are aware.
Nice. Hey, Chandler, you had your hand up. Do you still have a question?
No, I was just going to chime in real quickly about this workflow and naming schemes and bins and all that sort of stuff. So real quick, I actually record everything in, I record each take in log and then bring it all over into SilverStack. I primarily work in a color-only workflow where my loaders are handling the data. So I'm using SilverStack just to manage everything on that end. So I just bring a PFLA over from LiveGrade into SilverStack and then manage everything completely in SilverStack. That makes it all searchable. You're able to do reports a lot easier from there. If you have SilverStack Lab, you can actually do up to 12 stills or clips at a time that you can use as reference for your DP when they're trying to light a scene or trying to match two other shots. So I just find it's a lot easier that way, and then you can pick and choose the stills that you really want from there. You completely change all of your color after the fact, and then export the CDLs that you actually want to export from there. So that's all.
Are you able to show us that tonight?
Yeah, I can. I would just have to, you'd have to allow me to create a Zoom on my cart computer. I don't have a microphone.
All right, maybe we do it later.
On that computer.
Pico, real quick, before we get back to you, Jason had a quick question, and then we'll go back to Pico.
Cool. Hey, since we're talking about stills export and all that, and doing multiple stills, just to get us all on the same baseline, is there a naming convention that we should be using for each additional still?
So my workflow that I usually do just for exporting stills is I kind of send them to I send them to like a Google Drive folder that I invite the DP to, and I end up inviting usually like makeup department and pretty much anybody but directors and actors, technical workers that want to basically keep a running catalog or a reference of what we've been doing. They can just have it right there on their phone instantly once it syncs. Of course, that's not going to work on all shows. You know, lots going to be security issues with that and stuff like that. But that's kind of where I get into with my method of rating. So if I do the 5 and the 3, I just know in my mind that I take all the 5s and all the 3s and I save them just JPEGs with the look applied, and I'll save it to a Google Drive folder. Looks like that, you know, DIT grabs. I'll save it to the episode and the scene number. No one cares really what they're named beyond the scene and the cam, but you can see like it's going to add a 5 or a 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, basically the number 1 up through however many stills I'm exporting at once. To get around that, if you don't really like that, then you can customize it and add like a timestamp maybe. Sometimes I'll do like the time code of the clip. Sometimes right here you can get a in the clip identifier, I will add time code right there. I think a lot of times you can, I don't know why, but a lot of times it'll let you kind of state how you want the time to be saved.
Does the time code have to be coming in through SDI for that to work though?
You know, it's like, it does. It would seem that it does. You know, when I did it before, it was like time of day. And I can't remember right now off the top of my head exactly how current time, that's what it was. Just because if you can do it where it has seconds, there we go, hours, minutes, seconds, then it's constantly changing, which is kind of a dumb, stupid workaround, but you can see in the slot now the clip identifier is changing every second. So now if I take a still, grab a still, then when I go look at my clip identifier, which is way down here because I don't look at it. There, the 16, 15. It's got the second for the last thing. So if you don't want a clip to be named episode, scene, cam, 2, 3, 4, whatever. You can add a little bit more meaningful metadata on there. It gives you the time of day. Time code would be great, but yeah, you'd have to be getting the time code through the SDI.
So to jump off of the identifying, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that it appends automatically, that's actually something that I brought up to Pomfort a few times, because I don't like how with certain things in LiveGrade, when they're automated, they add a space and then a number rather than giving you an option to do no space or an underscore or anything. And so I have to go in and I have my own script that I wrote to take out spaces, but I was just curious how you were doing it.
Yeah, and so when you do it that way, obviously you can see with the time code, it does put the underscores between everything, and it doesn't put any spaces. So yeah, better that way. But like I said, I really kind of leave that clip identifier thing way at the end as kind of an afterthought. The only time I'm really looking at it is right here in the slot, just to kind of look down and go, okay, this is the look that's applied. So yeah, that's just kind of how I do it. A lot of as I go through the scene, I might have a 3-star, a 3-star, a 3-star. I like all those shots, and then I'll just to quickly grab them up all together. I'll qualify it by rating, and then I can grab it, export the stills to my Google Drive. Great, it's done. Wherever the Google Sync thing is, you can see it start sync. And then bam, it's on the DP's phone in like 5 minutes, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, however long it takes to upload. And I find DPs really like having that option if they can, because they will much rather look at 40, 50 stills on their phone, even if it's just captured straight off the SDI. As long as it's colored the way they saw it on set, that's instead of sitting down and watching dailies for 2 hours, they're going to swipe through the images, be really happy, or come back the next day or bitch at you through text message that night about how it doesn't look right, or they come back the next day and they said, all right, this looked a little off, let's go back and send post a new thing. It seems like a really easy, fast way that I can do it with LiveGrade. Use something like Google Drive or Dropbox, whatever, Apple stills, whatever you want to do, iCloud.
Hey, just real quick,
go ahead.
just because some people are hitting me up privately, I just want to make sure everyone feels comfortable, obviously taking grabs and whatnot, but like naming CDLs, naming images, or sorry, frame grabs, exporting and whatnot. And is everyone feeling good, or does anyone have questions about that right now before we kind of move on from it?
Just in case, like, just as a test here with, if I'm gonna eventually I'm gonna save the CDLs. So let's do it like I would be saving a CDL, which I just hit Shift Command S. You can check or uncheck whether you want a CDL or a JPEG to accompany it, and then there's where you want to name it, whatever. So do I really want to call it camera cam scene? No. So right here is where I would customize it and probably make it look pretty close to my clip identifier slot. Whatever, I'm not gonna take the time, I guess, since I'm doing. What was it? Slot label. Right. Oh, now it has camera, right? I can use camera. Thank you.
Yeah, it's camera there.
Yeah, like now it's camera. Okay, well, why was it slot label before? But anyway, there you go.
That's exactly.
Right. So, but now it's going to be named the way I want it to. It's going to stay that way under the customizable window until I change it to something else, and then I can save those anywhere. And that's going to save a JPEG with it if I want, or I can save it as a cube, whatever kind of LUT I want, and it'll contain my the 3D LUT node.
The cube would fold all of them together, all of your nodes, the CDL node, CDL saturation node, and 3D LUT into one cube, though, if you export that.
Right. Yeah, which some people I know will use cubes only, and just so there's no confusion, they can just send that along and post will know
and hope that that one post process is going to deal with no metadata on the color.
What do you mean, Dave?
Sidecar files that aren't attached to anything are useless. So you could complain about the CDL all you want, but every piece of hardware that you have that anybody's ever going to use rasterizes the color exactly the same way, and the minute that they export an ALE or an XML, that data is attached. It's embedded in it, and the color. I mean, I'm not going to say the colorist is ever going to use it again, but at least that data travels through the post pipeline. You hand somebody 10,000 shots. It'd be nice to know if they were in color, right? The right color. Do that with 10,000 LUTs. That's just that thumb drive of LUTs is going to end up in the trash. Don't think it isn't going to. If this isn't convenient for the next bunch of guys that have to work on the project, it's just never going to get looked at.
Hey, Dave, what are you talking about specifically?
I'm talking about the use of multiple cubes. It's just silly.
No, you shouldn't use.
You don't have to like this, but we should be aware. You should be aware of what happens to what we hand into the post pipeline. I mean, if the data isn't attached to the picture file somehow, then it can't be parsed later, and it gets thrown away. So all the work that we did on set never gets seen again. You can't force the colorist to use what you did, but if you make it so they can use it, maybe at least you have a fighting chance.
Are you talking about like making your own like show LUTs and having multiple 3D LUTs? I'm missing what you're saying. Sorry.
So you have 1,000 shots in something, right? And you color each one of them. If you did that with one show LUT and a CDL for each shot, at least in the Dailies process, the CDL data gets attached to the rest of the picture metadata and travels through post and can be accessed later. You can't do that with multiple LUTs. That's what I'm saying.
Right. So you would be right. You wouldn't send the multiple cubes. You would stick to the basically one or however many show LUTs you have, whatever show LUT you want to use, and then a CDL per shot or per scene or whatever. Right. Okay.
And to that, I just want to say that as few as you can get away with is the way to go.
Sure.
Are you guys putting the LUT on the slate, or how are you guys getting the actual show LUT if there's multiple to post? Because I was on a show where we had 5 show LUTs, so I actually was doing cubes, but I understand that they wouldn't pass down the line after that point. But I do wonder what you guys are doing to get the post house to or the Dailies people to put the right show LUT on with your CDLs.
Right there.
Well, as of recently, that information is now available as a wildcard. Thank you, Brandon.
Right. That's true.
In the CDL export. So what happens is whatever 3D LUT you had loaded in the 3D LUT node inside LiveGrade for that slot, when it exports the CDL, you can actually affix the name of that cube as part of the wildcard that names the CDL. So the rule there, for sanity's sake, would be to try and make the smallest file names for those 3D LUTs that you intend on using in the show as humanly possible.
Right, and not use a LUT name like I have here in the report. That was something that's just we picked from the preset right here. We went through it with Red. They said the presets in LiveGrade are pretty good. They're we've been working with Pomfort. They're what we gave them basically. So use those. So I said, great. So use those. It's got some crazy long character name. I'm like, whatever. That's what it is. We're not touching it the rest of the show. There it is. So on this particular show, we'd only had the one LUT node and stayed that way the whole time. But when you do change it,
what happens to that? So and that gets embedded in an ALE or what?
That would not. No.
the cube is not embedded into the ALE. If they decided to include that in a custom column, the name of the cube, they could do that.
Guys, if the work that you do cannot be transmitted explicitly through the rest of a normal post pipeline, why are you dying to do it?
Well,
Dave, they have to send this 3D LUT as well, right?
Absolutely.
But they can't. They're not going to make a 3D LUT for every shot like we were talking about, right? So what he has to do is, if he's using a preset in his pre-production process, he's going to have to create a totally empty CDL with no values to get this exact thing out as a cube and send it to post, so that when they recreate each one of these shots with the CDL, and they just use this to know what cube he's using, right?
Exactly right. Exactly right.
Yeah, I think we're all talking the same language here.
Yeah, I think we're just.
Yeah, you definitely send them. Yeah, you definitely send them the show LUT ahead of time, or on the first day, or every day if you want, and say this is just the LUT by itself.
Show that it's every day. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
But
that's clear communication that you just have to have with post, that that's how we're doing it. We're going to send it every day, or I'm going to send it once, or it's going to be in this shared drive where it sits, and anytime you need it, there it is. Or the definitions of what show LUTs you're using, or how many show LUTs you're going to use, should be usually happening before the first shoot day, I would think. Usually with me it is.
Yeah. Hey, Andrew Reynolds had a question. Andrew, you're up. Andrew, you're up, bud, if you want to talk.
Is he muted?
All right. He's yielding his time to Strawberry. Go ahead, Mike.
Really quickly to what we were saying there about if they're using multiple different LUTs. First, one of the things that I would advise against Picot is using the preset like directly as the preset. If for some reason your software gets updated and Pomfort fucks something up, you may be using that preset and there might be something wrong with it. I always, if I'm gonna take the preset, if the DP says they want it from the preset, I'll export it and then I'll load not the preset but the exported file.
Yeah.
So always using the same file.
Yeah, for sure. Right. You'd load it right here with this, and you'd
exactly
wherever you had it, and you'd load that. Yeah. That's a good point. That's a good point. And make sure it's the same one no matter what.
Yeah. And if you're using multiple 3D LUTs, which I try to discourage, I have seen that where the second assistants are putting that on the slates. It's a shit show. It's almost never right. I catch them all the time doing the wrong thing. And just recently, that's why
you can't get the right roll number on the damn slate. Come on.
I know. To have them have the right LUT, I think it's asking a little much. So the automated way that exists now, Brandon put his elbow down on Pomfort. It worked very well. I was like, look, we really need a way, because they did not have the ability to export the cube that's used as a wildcard. Now we've got that. That I think is the very best way to use a short file named cube and include that in the wildcard. So that if there's any question, you just look at the file name and you know that that's the LUT that was used when this CDL was created. And that will allow you to recreate the color management pipeline very simply from what's there in that little file name.
Adam Braverman, you're up.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on what Tyler was saying. So I finished a Marvel show like a week and a half ago, like everybody else did, where we did actually have multiple LUTs. Now, we had a show LUT to start, so that was fairly easy because the lab got it. No big deal, whatever. As we went along, the DP refined a couple of looks that he wanted me to use as starting points for scenes throughout the show. Now, what I did was, Aaron Picot, can you on your the LUT A, can you change the tab to the one that shows the metadata, please? So you can sort of help illustrate what I'm talking about here. Go to like your A slot. Go to your A slot and change your view so we see that information. Yeah. So I added. So go to the plus sign there on the A slot, please. So I used a. I think it was like like one of the comments, or what is it here? I'm going to open mine up. Sorry. It was
custom one.
Yeah, like custom 1, custom 2. I used the naming structure of the LUT itself and put that in there, and then made that a wildcard on my export for my CDLs and stills. So the naming convention was like episode _ scene _ camera _ comment 2, or sorry, custom 2. Custom being LUT in this case. And I think that's because I was working off of an old version, like version 4, because we started the series way back in like July or August of 2019. And I didn't have version 5 ready to go. So that was my fix. Yeah, it doesn't automate the lab, but our job is just to help them out, right? So I'm giving them CDLs that say in there, okay, this is a CDL, and your output LUT will be this guy right here, happy day or gloomy house, you know. So that's what I did. There was no issues. I did always get on the radio and tell them, hey guys, okay, we're gloomy day, right on the slates, thank you. And the assistants were pretty good about it. I didn't see them miss it once, because we got a lingo. I would say it, they would read me back, or they would come to me and say, hey, are we this? And I'd be like, yes, we are that. But I always told the lab, say, hey, look, just go with what I give you, regardless of what you see come up in the shot, because I've got the DP's ear, 3 feet from me, so I know what he needs.
Cool. So. Hey, real quick, Andy Lemon, then we'll go back to Picot.
Do you guys feel that this is all way too complicated? You have not hashtags, but LUTs upon naming conventions. What about if you just hit a save button and it saved everything?
Fuck your TrueLight, Andy.
No, you know what? That's using that wild card. It just spits it out. Like Braverman was doing this that way before. He didn't have that availability, and now it does that. It's easy.
Andy, you mean like of all the work that we're doing, and it's like it would be better if it just all tracked by time code or something, and so then you can just hit export, and everything that you did, all the decisions that were made, just become a file that you hand post, and then it all kind of unwraps on their end and lays nicely within.
Like a TrueLight system.
Sure. So I won't get into it too much, but kind of what I've been doing with LiveGrade and with SilverStack, and I think somebody else kind of alluded to it as well, is once I build, actually throughout the day, really, if I'm going to be doing transcoding and stuff like that, you can right click on your bin and export a Pomfort look archive, PFLA, which is what they call it. And that'll contain basically like Pomfort's own set of information. I've never unwrapped the file and looked at exactly what it looks like, but you can take that over to SilverStack Lab and tell it to match looks based on either time code or episode, scene, take, I guess shot metadata. There's like 5 or 6 different criteria you can use to match this library of looks that you chose over. It's automated basically. So I can't remember who is, maybe this Chandler was mentioning you do that with your recorded clips because you're just doing all color. I can't remember if it was you, sorry, that was talking about that. But essentially that's the same thing. And so then when you know, if you wanted to do it by reel number or whatever, scene number, then just when you dump the stuff in lab, you can kind of just instantly match it. Maybe not instantly, maybe it takes 5 seconds, but instead of lining up each CDL for each shot or making sure that this, that, and the other, it just kind of goes and it gets you into the next software with the decisions that you have already made. And so then if you want to adjust further before export or for whatever reason, you can do that to the best of SilverStack Labs coloring capabilities, which I know isn't that much compared to what people are doing on commercials. But in another session or whatever, if anybody wanted, I'd be happy to kind of show that workflow too.
Hey, Jason Johnson, you're up real quick.
Yeah.
Hey, so can we talk about how, you know, different lenses, different cameras had different looks, and in pre-pro, or, you know, when you're prepping, you would be creating different presets for different cameras and then working off of them throughout the job?
Okay. Yeah, actually, that was one of the next things I was going to do. A job I worked on recently is called corporate. Not corporate, sorry, deputy, actually. I have no idea what images are in here. I haven't looked in a long time, so I'm sorry if anything offends anybody. But so this show presented the challenge because we had a lot of different lenses. None of them matched, and we had 2 or 3 cameras constantly changing the lenses, changing the primes, almost never wore zooms. And I knew that it was going to be tough to ride the irises and also make sure that all the colors matched quickly. So the idea I came up with was to create this look library with these different bins. So in prep, I kind of went through and I lined up like a color checker chart and a gray chart, and I had my my waveforms and my spectroscope and all that kind of cool stuff. And I set the light to 1 color temperature. We did some white balancing and basically got to a place where I captured a still from the feed with each one of the lenses put on the same camera body and labeled them. So here's, you can kind of see what's going on here. A camera had their set of Pancros, B camera had their set of Pancros. And so I created this nodal preset for each lens. So it's not just, it's basically just a CDL for 1 slot. And I'll show you what I mean by slot. Like this CDL would be a slot, or a node, I guess you could say. So if I were to click this, you see it added another CDL node. Although it's not doing, it's not doing it the way I would like it to, but these are all called lenses, this CDL node, and that's how I saved these all. If you go to save it as a node, you can kind of like deselect which node you want to save it as, whatever you have open. So whatever corrections I made in this lens would only be applied to this little preset. I'm not saying it that right. I know I'm kind of being confusing, but the point is that when B camera went to the 25 Pancro, I could double click this preset and it would throw that node down here underneath my main CDL working window. This is the only one. I don't know if you can see these moving. This is when I do corrections with the panels, this is the only thing that's going to be adjusted, is this CDL node and this saturation node. All these other nodes are going to stay put wherever they are. If I drag this way over here and I go to spin, it's only going to spin this top CDL node. So what we had going was, hopefully maybe I can just get rid of this. CDL2, whatever that is. So I made a preset for each lens, a node preset, so that every time I could click it, it would keep us consistent within the scene. So the top CDL node was basically like salt and pepper to taste, make it look how you want it to look. Also saturation, of course. And then this node down here was just any kind of slight offset. Definitely it had some kind of a different feel. It was warmer, it was cooler, it was contrastier, it was darker, whatever. I kind of brought everything back to neutral at prep, just with small corrections, and just so on the day. It worked pretty well. I won't say it worked 100%. I would have liked to have the numbers be much more like mathematical and exact. If something like that could be kind of perfected, and given like one button keyboard maps, so I can map it to a Stream Deck or something other than a keyboard. What I would want to do is have basically 3 button presses: which camera, which lens, which filter, or combination of filters, basically. And that's kind of where I was trying to get it to. And I'm rambling a little bit, and I'll take questions if you guys have them.
Yeah, Ryan McGregor want to know how you edited the look preset in the side panel. Just go over that again, how you kind of built that out, please.
Okay. All right. So let's get rid of, just to make it easy, we'll just get rid of this top CDL node right there. So I'm on CDL advanced. That's how I'm able to add and subtract nodes. I'm never going to use a 1D LUT. I don't know why that's on there. So we have a 3D LUT node, should be like the show LUT, the saturation, and this node that I named lens. You can name it right there. So let's say I'm looking at a lens and it's too cool. All right, I warmed it up a bit. Why is it not? No, sorry, it's a bad example. It's not letting me actually use my hardware panels. But let's say I just need to warm it up a bit. I can drag the midtones, just do it manually just to show you what I'm doing. It looks too saturated. Okay, I bring the saturation down. So I've made a little color offset, for example. I can go right here to the look presets and touch this button right here that is create new nodes preset. Oop. Now, do you want this little color preset to include your LUT, your saturation, and your CDL? No, I don't want it to include the LUT at all. Because when I click this, I don't want it to turn on or off a LUT. I just want it to do the saturation and the CDL. Okay, save. New test lens. Right. So then I can reset. Let's say I reset all these back to nothing. And I add a new CDL node. There we go.
Hey, Pico, Harnell had a question. The CDLs get combined, right? When you have 2 or more layers.
That's right.
It's just numeric values that get combined to make one CDL that's not like duplicating extra values, basically.
That's right. Yeah, it does the math for you, basically, and spits out what you're trying to do in the CDL. So now I should be able to. I don't really know why it's not letting me control the top layer, but with
Are we
hardware.
seeing Braverman for a reason right now?
Are we seeing what?
I don't see your screen anymore. I see Mr. Braverman.
Oh, really? Hold on, I'll stop sharing and then I'll reshare it. Let's see.
This might have been me. It might be me.
You were seeing my screen and not his?
No, I was seeing your face, but not his screen.
Careful, Adam.
How about that?
Okay, I'll go get more food.
Yeah.
So anyway, now I think as long as this is named lens, then if I double click this, did you see how it made the adjustments right there? It set it back to whatever that correction was I just made, and it affected my saturation. So now I have kind of like a bottom layer CDL right here that is my lens preset. Up here is how I would ever want to color the scene. All this is doing for me is keeping the scene that we're shooting the same no matter what lens we're putting on. Change the lens, change the lens preset. These color decisions up here remain as intended as you did them on the previous lenses for the most part. You'll see what I mean when you do it. I haven't found it to be an exact science and it's not perfect, but it's the best I think that the software itself can do so far. as far as keeping things in line.
Actually, if you wanted it to work consistently, you would put the lens correction ahead of your color style CDL.
Okay.
Order of transformation is very, very important with this stuff, and you know, you also have to find that you have to find the one slot that's got the little icon of the panel, and that way you would be controlling the thing you want to be controlling. If you look at the saturation node, you'll see there's a little thing on the left side there.
If it's just combining the two things together, Dave, can you explain that better? Because it's just
only from painful experience. I've been down this road, and what I found was my particular show was a bunch of a very, very mixed bag of anamorphic lenses, and I found that if I put especially when you went from like a day scene to a night scene, and you wanted, I found that the correction nodes that I made were wildly different, had wildly different results depending on the illumination of the scene you were shooting. But when I put the lens correction ahead of the color style, things got much more consistent, much more quickly. There's no reason why it should work that way, but it did.
That's nice. That's good to know. Actually, I'm going to try that next time. I would have liked to work a little more consistently with, like what you're saying, when between
it's just like,
between differently lit scenes, between tungsten and daylight.
Well, also, especially on a long show, you know what that A camera 50 looks like. You know, and like what the hell? You know, it's warm all day. Why do they get cool at night or whatever? And yeah, that's at least that's what I found.
Oh, interesting. That's good to know. But so, you know, choose your own adventure as far as taking this information and applying it to whatever you're doing. But I found that this very hectic shoot was simplified by doing it this way. These LUTs we actually had 3 show LUTs, and we actually only ever used 2 of them. So we basically had 2 show LUTs. So these LUTs that I made were nodes where I would change the LUT down here to wherever, the DT_01 or 02. That's where I would change a different LUT, and then I would save a node, and I would uncheck everything but the LUT. That way, when I click it, it just changes the LUT node, and that's it. So that's just nice. Instead of having to go to load and find it and load it, you can just kind of tap your presets right there. I think we only used 1 and 2. Didn't use that much, but it came in handy. What else?
So when
questions about that?
When you export, are you exporting 2 CDLs, or is it averaging them?
Yeah, it averages. It does the math. Whatever.
It doesn't average. It's concatenation.
Yeah, not averaging. Exactly. Right.
Copy that.
Yeah, if it averaged, it wouldn't look the way you want it to. But yeah, no, it's just, you don't have to spit out multiple CDLs. It's just, if I were to,
but there, there's a gotcha there too, because you can't, the SOP values have to add up to 1. So you have to tread lightly with this stuff, and you have to test before you just don't do it on Tuesday morning. While they're having a private rehearsal.
Right. You can see right there up in the shot library how it has the 2 different lines of CDLs right there. So that's letting me know that I have the 2 different nodes working together. And then the SAT node, and then the LUT node, and all that stuff. So all goes along in the report. I think I showed that already. Yeah, we tried to put the LUT names on the slate, but Romano's exactly right and Dave's exactly right. Like, the slate is an antiquated piece of technology and doesn't really help anybody almost ever. So, because it's always wrong. So that's why I trying to rate it in with reporting and with just keeping things as consistent and including as much information I can daily with breaks and wraps.
Hey, Picot, once you're done with this, there's a question to kind of go back when you're setting up your box AO and just talk about legal, extended.
Oh, okay.
kind of going over those things again, and how like sometimes you let LiveGrade control the box, sometimes you don't want it. Let's just go over that for a minute.
Yeah, I had nothing else to say about the lens presets. So if anybody has a question about that, then we don't get to it. You can just email me or whatever. Adding a LUT box. Because I use the box IOs, I usually let the FSI remote utility do the range selection right here for this type of code value type of stuff. I know Dave's not doing the
Let's just say
stuff
you're on an Alexa sending log C wireless to your box IOs. How would you set it up?
Right. Okay, so I'd put it in a legal range, which is called video in this utility. And I'd make sure that all of my channels, channel 1 and channel 2, were both set to video, not accidentally set to extended. So I kind of caught it earlier because I did a Sony show, or for whatever reason I had one in extended. So before I came in and set this up, I made sure that everything was in video. If I wanted to set up my other box IO, add a slot, add a device, put in the other IP address, I believe it is that.
Real quick to add what Picot's saying there, if you're not running a newer version of LiveGrade and you changed what the range setting was in the box IO utility, there is a bug where LiveGrade will incorrectly report the range, and it can be set differently, and they basically fight for control. So if that happens, make sure that you remove your device and re-add it, or just make sure you're running the latest version of LiveGrade.
Cool.
I actually recently found a bug in that too. I was talking to Flanders about it, but it's a little unrelated. It's like I had a box IO that would just go into extended for no reason. And it was a variation of like restarting, re-adding, pulling it in as LiveGrade, pulling it out, changing it from video to extended. And eventually it would fall into play and then fall out of play. So I don't know if that's related or not.
Because you were being tested, Luke.
You know.
Was that a new version of LiveGrade that you were using?
Yeah, I mean, this was a problem I had for the first time in October, and then resurfaced in, I don't know, I guess like last month. But it was only happening in dual channel mode. So if that means anything.
There was an update to LiveGrade that I just did last night, and it was a signal range fix, but I didn't read all the details. Maybe it's that.
That would be interesting. Yeah, I mean, it was weird because it would only pop up on 4 camera days. That was the only time I ever had problems with it. So it was rare.
Hey, my question about legal versus full or extended is, generally, if you're using an Alexa, you're going to get legal out of the SDI out. So wouldn't you want to set your box IO to full? Because if you set it to legal, you're taking away from the already legal image that you're getting in from the SDI.
Good question.
No, it expects legal. That's what you're saying. You're saying legal is headed to me, so I want to expect legal, so I'm going to set it to legal.
Okay.
So the tricky thing is that LiveGrade scales to extended when it does all the math inside the program.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is what most programs do if they're doing it correctly.
Yeah, and
you should extend to full or extended, whatever you want to call it, on the fly.
Yeah, Tyler, there's it's on the Pomfort website. It's a really, really old knowledge base article, like 3 years old. They actually have a graph shows it's like camera, legal out, SDI, and it goes YCBR to RGB. So now you're inside LiveGrade, and the program is working in full range. Okay, now I'm leaving LiveGrade. I got to go to an SDI monitor so I can see what I'm looking at, and I get moved from RGB, 10-bit or 12-bit, back to YCBR 422, and I'm legal again to a legal monitor.
All right.
Does that make sense for you? Because the red is another curveball, so is Sony, but at least for the Airy side of things.
Yeah, no, I had issues. I just was curious because I didn't assume the program would. I thought it was just closing down to a legal range based on whatever signal was coming in. So if it was illegal coming in, you'd actually want full because you're actually already getting a legal signal. And the other thing I had an issue with at one point was DXL versus RED and the order of operations as far as a LUT or a CDL on board the camera is something else you guys should all be aware of, which camera you're using, how it actually works.
Will you speak to that?
Sure. I did a DXL show, which is just a LUT basically that covers everything. And then I went to a RED show, which has the IPP2 transform. And then you can also put a 3D LUT on, and it's just the order of operation. So we had done it incorrectly. We thought the IPP2 transform was first. There's a white paper on this, which I didn't find until a couple weeks in. And then the 3D LUT. And it was actually the other way around. The 3D LUT went first, and then the IPP2 transform. So when they went and shot something in a kind of drastic 3D LUT they created, show LUT, it didn't show up correctly when we recreated it for the dailies. So just try to figure that out, and sort of how you want to make sure each camera you're doing the correct order of operation, especially if there's multiple steps to it with the RED, for example.
Copy that. Chris, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, just a couple points. First one is just to do with the box IOs. Just a quick heads up. If you're using the box IO with the dual inputs with the two separate camera feeds, like I think they call it the Pro box. If you have mixed camera signals, it's not supported on the same box. So if you have like one box that's 720 or 1080 or different frame rates, it will contaminate the other input. So you might have a system where you're like, whoa, what's going on with my A camera feed? It's all monkeyed up. Well, your C camera feed, for example, coming into the input 2 is going to be all monkeyed with the alternate format. So just a heads up on that. And then
what would be the telltale? You say monkeyed. How would you know on the day, like, oh, this is the problem I'm having?
Yeah, so as you can see right now on the display under the D camera tab, you see that those vertical lines there. You'll get something kind of like that, but it'll be like a garbled image combined with the vertical lines. Because what's happening is the box IOs, like some other devices, they want the same format, same frame rate to be on both inputs for the clocking. It's just thrown me off once before, and I was like, "What the fuck? Oh shit, something's broken!" But actually, it was because I had it was a Sony A7S or something like that was plugged into my line, and I forgot to change my decimator box to match the format of our primary cameras.
Hey, that happens too if your bolt loses signal and switches to 720p.
Yeah,
you should have it set to match incoming signal or whatever that says. So when like a bolt loses signal, it stays in 1080p 24 2398, because that little garbled image that Picot was showing, I still get that. And I talk to finders about it all the time. Like I still get that garbled image, and I have to refresh the frame grab twice to get rid of it.
Yeah, that's still the workaround. So there's actually a way if you just refresh. I actually have set up on my panel to refresh all stills and all columns every so often. I can just hit that button to refresh them all without taking a frame grab. That fixes that problem. And then just a comment to do with the DXL2 and the DSMC2 workflows is just set the cameras to legacy for the moment. Because and then predefine
for the last 3 years.
yeah, exactly. And then just a heads up, if you end up using the light iron LUT, colorists or dailies colorists hate that. Everybody hates it. It's a nice LUT. It's actually really great for skin tones, but it does add that one extra stop push into it. So just a heads up.
It's closer to 1.4, just to let everybody know. Than just one straight stop. It's about 1.4 stops that it adds.
Yeah, yes.
Though doesn't have ISO recalibration correction or whatever the hell it is that Red's calling it. So it kind of does need that, but I wouldn't rate that camera at 1600.
Ever.
Why would you say that? Same sensor, same low pass if you use a low light filter.
I don't think there's any Red camera that can rate at 1600 and look great.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah.
Just to add to that, the last 3 jobs I've done have been Red DXL combo jobs, and it's funny, I'm often in a situation where DPs want to shoot at a higher ISO because they see that that's the native ISO of the camera. So then effectively we start overexposing the camera and just bring it down to CDL. I'm just wondering if anybody else is using that practice, which is ass backwards, but it's just sort of the easiest answer to that sort of situation.
Depends if it's a night scene or a day scene. I mean, if it's a day scene, I'll always be absolutely careful on a red camera to pad the highlights.
Yeah.
If it's a night scene, it doesn't really matter, honestly.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Interesting.
Yeah, you have to be really careful with the highlights on those cameras, and it does make sense to rate higher and, during a day scene. I know it's counterintuitive, right? But a higher rating during a day scene will protect your highlights. But at night, you really can't underrate them. A lot of people seem to think that they can do that, but then when they look at it at 4K, they realize it was kind of a mistake.
Yeah, like at night, if we're doing night scenes, we'll quite often rate the camera 800 or even lower in some cases.
Exactly, like a lower ISO. That way you're putting way more neg in there.
Yeah, I feel like in night scenes, I'm always rating the camera at like 800 to 640, and in a day scene, I don't know, crank it up a little bit for highlight retention, but that's sort of where we land.
If anybody doesn't have anything else to add, I did want to talk about bringing stills from post back into LiveGrade as a verification, because I feel like that's something that we all need to be better about, if you will. It's the confirmation and trust but verify. And this is something that came up in our Netflix meetings a few times, that like a lot of DITs will just cross their fingers and be like, yeah, here's my stills, here's my CDLs, but they don't bring stills or frame, dailies back into their system from from post to verify that everything's lining up. So Picot, you want to talk about that for a minute?
So you're saying somebody on the Dailies team will cycle back stills that they've captured after they've applied your parameters.
Yeah.
Send back on the shuttle drive or some kind of Google Drive or a Dropbox or something somehow to get you their stills.
Yeah.
So that you can do a visual verification.
It's funny, Curtis was saying that he has trouble with it, but I have to have it because I bring them back in, I pipe them back over SDI, because you can't look at the stills on your computer screen, right? That's a mistake some people make. But you pipe them back over SDI and you can do a wipe and just make sure your waveform doesn't move. And then that Express Dailies or whatever they're using is doing exactly what you wanted. Your CDL is lining up perfectly. And it's that kind of confidence that a lot of people starting out don't realize they have the ability to do or the ability to ask for. But from that point on, you just make a habit of doing it every day, and it's just confidence. It's 100% confidence that what you're doing is working.
Yeah, lately I've had to ask specifically and just say, hey, the DP wants this, but really I want it, because either the DP doesn't care or they trust me to check it. And so I have to tell the Dailies people, yeah, the DP and I need this. And then, we get it sent however they send it every day, just so that you can verify what you do is actually coming through. Because, in the beginning I felt like, it was a fingers crossed, or I'd have to go into post and I remember, I don't know, when I first started, I brought my freaking cart into the Dailies operation because it wasn't lining up, and then it was some checkbox that wasn't checked or whatever. But yeah, that especially setting up the show the first few days is most important, but getting the stills continuously is nice also, just for the fact that you have a reference from their side of what it is.
Yeah. Hey, if you're on a high security show, just shoot a color chart, a Macbeth chart, and send it, with your CDL correction, send it to them, have them send it back to you, a still burned in, even video file. And then, you don't need an actor's face in it to confirm, but it's so crucial to make sure your workflow is round trip working, Also, I typically I haven't really had pushback on this, but like I get a lot of on shows, I get stills every day, and I bring those in, and like a lot of times they have way better stills than I do because the Dailies operator can be like, that's the exact frame, you know. So I put those stills in a different bin in my LiveGrade folder or library called reference, and it's amazing to pull up that information 2 months into a project. You have high quality stills from them and from you.
Do you find that it gets weird when you pull that stuff up for like a matching reference for a turnaround and you don't have like OSD on there and the sizing is different?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it just a quick little explanation that like it's clearly not the video feed that I was taking a screenshot of, you know. But it's been helpful for me. I'll just say that.
That's a good point, though. I mean, just being thorough and not just like you were saying, just hoping or having hopes and wishes that what you're doing is working, but actually verifying it. That's important. Yeah.
Trust but verify.
Yeah. So I know for the I know we've been on for a couple hours. I know the East Coast guys are like, yeah, it's 1 a.m. We're talking about stills verification on a Friday night. Super cool. I don't know if you guys want to stay on. Yeah, right. Exactly. Hope everyone's doing okay, by the way.
Sorry, the only thing I would add is I had an issue on a show where we were doing freestyle for the setup instead of CDL and LUT. And in freestyle, when you are set up that way, you cannot export a CDL through the file menu. You have to do it, I discovered much later, through the little gear icon there. So just a heads up to anyone, if you're doing freestyle, whether it's a import, export, LUT, or anything like that, you got to make sure that you use the gear icon instead of the file save look icon setup.
Was that the workaround for you? Because I remember you had this issue, but I don't know if it ever got resolved.
Yeah, I was an idiot apparently, and I just assumed, oh, it didn't save CDLs. What's going on? I thought it was the SPL contrast slider or the green slider, but it was just I was in freestyle on 2 of my cameras and not on the 3rd one for some reason. And so on 2 of the cameras, it wouldn't export CDLs. But if you do go to that gear icon under the SPL tab, you can save CDL, but it is individually instead of group-wise.
Oh, bummer. Nice little LiveGrade gotcha.
What's the benefit of using freestyle mode? Anybody know?
Making non-compliant CDLs.
there isn't one. It's that stuff shouldn't be in there.
Yeah.
Well,
honestly,
it did work out on as I was talking earlier about the DXL2 versus the red. If you are loading a 3D LUT and then doing an IPP2 LUT as well, you want to make sure you put them in the correct order. So freestyle gives you that opportunity to move stuff around. Or I was just on a pickup on a job where we had a Aces LUT, and then they wanted to do a CDL and then another LUT, and so you had to do it in freestyle. And they just wanted to save the CDL, so you had to have the CDL screen and save it through the gear icon instead.
Could you not do CDL and LUT, but just add another LUT node?
CDL Advanced.
CDL Advanced, yeah.
Freestyle is a holdover from version 3 when they were starting to experiment with, as you can see, Picot's screen right now, with this extrapolated.
Yeah, there you go.
And I think it's sort of gone by the wayside as the power and usability of CDL Advanced is much more improved. So I don't know.
But you can reorder those LUT nodes in those layers, and yeah, exactly. That's what you could have done, Tyler. You don't have to be in freestyle.
Any grading mode allows you to do that.
Yeah.
Jamie, you spoke earlier about legal versus extended within Alexa, and then also how Red and Sony were totally different stories. So I'm curious about what you have to say with Red, because I feel like I've always been lucky with a legal workflow with that.
The last show I did that was Red was over 2 years ago, and the colorist made me 10 show LUTs that we used. Kind of, all sprinkled through. That was a show where we actually put the.
That's amazing.
We put like LUT 1 through 10 on the slate. It worked. It worked fine, but I actually don't remember what we did because I think he made an extended LUT, so I actually had to set LiveGrade to extended in, not legal in.
And so was this prior to IPP2?
No, it's when IPv2 came out, but no one used it. You know, we all were like, just use legacy because there's so many things that don't translate, like the highlight.
Like we still are, yeah.
Yeah. IPv2 was not meant for us. It was meant for wedding videographers. You know what I mean?
I like how they call it legacy, but really it's the future.
It's current legacy.
Yeah. And everybody's still finding that, all right, yeah, so Sony's its own weird world.
Well, Romano is the fucking master of that world. You should ask him all your questions now.
I got a question for everybody else, though, because someone at Photochem called me the other day. Apparently, they know that I know apparently everything there is about Venice bullshit, whatever. But they stumped me on a question, and I've never done an F-55 show before. I think we took one out one day on a series and then just threw it away. You know, it was just no good.
Smart.
But no one knew the answer to this. Have you guys done F-55 shows? And if so, is it full? Is it 0 to 1023? Is it 64 to 940? Or is it 64 to 1023?
Well, correct, sir. Ding, 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 ding.
Neither. It's all of the above.
64 to 1023 is what it is, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, that's a fuck you number right there.
Well, no, it's not. Okay, so the solution to this is you just scale. I anything I use inside the camera, I just scale in lattice.
I can answer that because I did Timeless for NBC season 1 here in Vancouver, and it was F-55s, and I replaced a DIT, so I didn't know what the heck was going on, and yeah, and also box IOs didn't exist back then yet, I don't think. Yeah, no, that was like late 2016. Yeah, so we had to get a device from Sony. It was like an add-on box that came out of the SDIs, and it took the 3G signal and made it a proper 1.5G signal, which then it does like what the Venice does now. It made it a legal signal. So it was like a hardware adaptation to take their version of extended and make it legal. So then I was actually legal in, legal out. I know, it sounds totally stupid.
It's just a LUT box, Adam. That's all it is.
Well, no, because I couldn't get my LUT boxes, even in extended in, legal out, to match up perfectly. And I had
what you need to do is scale the LUT. That's exactly right. That's what I said. You need to scale the LUT externally. The best way to do that is in lattice, I find, and then things line up really nicely. I know it's only because I'm still doing a show with F-55s. I do most of the shows I do are F-55s.
Dave, why don't you tell us this like 3 years ago, bro?
Nobody asked.
Hold on, let me go through my my DIT-WIT. Well, you know what? I wasn't in DIT-WIT then. Okay, there you go.
So
let me just speak to that just for 1 second, if you don't mind. You know, every show's got its own, you know, weirdnesses and proclivities. I mean, you know, mostly I do just, you know, to be fully transparent here, mostly I do multicams, and you know, the one-offs is on the one-off shows I do, you know, comedy, music, whatever. The colored pipeline is what I tell everybody it's going to be, and we don't discuss it. On the longer shows, you know, there's a process, and I did a couple of shows for Sony, and I was quite surprised to find that nobody at Sony at the studio knew anything about this camera whatsoever. But I wanted to do a log workflow for a sitcom, and they said, well, we have to have proxies that match. And I said, I can absolutely do that. And they said, well, how? And I said, oh, no problem. And of course, it took me about 3 weeks to figure out how I was going to no problem that one, but we had lots of pre-production time. And subsequently, I mean, you know, honestly, most stuff I do these days is in HDR, and it's all in ACES. And again, to be fully transparent, I don't use the Flanders hardware. I use IS Minis, and you know, all of these things are explicitly transformed properly in the LUTs that I use. And so all these level things are addressed, in a way that's repeatable now. So, but it's not like you can't turn the thing on and just expect it to work. I wish we could do that, but I don't think maybe the ARRI cameras do that, but that's about it, right?
Well, it's nice that the F55 is figured out now.
So Dave, you're saying that when you make those transforms, you bake that into your LUT, or you take that transform that only makes the signal behave the way you want it to range-wise, and then place it in the camera.
Okay, so the first job was XAVC, and we had to have proxies. So for that, I had to make it work inside I had to make the LUT baked into the proxies match my show color. And that was, that was just a matter of iteration and try every control and every piece of hardware and every piece of software I had until I found a solution. Now, most of the jobs I do are raw. And so that solves that problem really well. And ACES, especially ACES in version 5 of LiveGrade, solves the rest of them.
Cool. Well, that answers that question for anyone who's wondering about the F55. It is definitely different than the Venice.
Yeah.
And by the way, I had my Y cameras of Venice, just for fun.
Just for shits.
Dave will be calling you with all questions in regard to F55.
We never close, so that's just fine.
You're the guy, bro. You're the guy. Hey, Jason Johnson, time for a subject change.
Hey, so my next question is about workflow, but it's more how you guys go about, say there's a Splinter unit that goes out and you want to color that footage. Since there is no scaling in LiveGrade or anything like that, I've just been having the ACs play back off of a camera, or grab a camera that we're not using and play back for myself, cut the line so I'm getting it, color it, take some stills and send it out. Because I want to have the the data around it so that it's going to match up directly when we go to do something else, and I know exactly what I'm looking at.
I send an Odyssey with them on the Splinter unit, and then I have it capture log, and I bring it back to the cart and I grade it then.
I just grade it in SilverStack. It's it's quick and easy. If a loader is downloading, I'll hop on the track and just spend 5 minutes with it.
Can I propose something?
You can also just tell the Dailies operator to match and cover your ass.
So, Jason, is your question about how do you help the second unit DIT match color-wise work you've done from main unit?
No, this is like D camera going off to get beauty shots or something that we've never seen before. So I either color it,
and then you want to grade it when you get it back to match
exactly
so that
at least
look of your
someone's
show.
looked at it.
Yeah. I usually do it in SilverStack.
You can take the card in a reader and play it out of your computer over SDI into a LUT box as well. Like play it out of Resolve back into your system.
Yeah, sure. I do that all the time.
Yeah.
You can also just have the loader give you the shuttle drive before it goes out, quickly load it into SilverStack and grade it that way.
That's a good point. And by load it, you just mean like add to library, just so it adds it to just so it registers it. You don't got to sit there and download it.
Exactly. Yeah. Just load the library, then go in, grade real quick on your system, save your CDLs from SilverStack, and then hand off the shuttle to the PA or whatever.
That's smart. I like that.
Does anyone else use Chandler's SilverStack workflow?
Of recording the feed and taking those files into SilverStack, is that what you mean?
Yeah.
It's a good idea. I'm gonna try it. I haven't done it.
I'm happy to discuss the
I mean,
workflow.
it's.
Do you have your system set up so you can share your screen?
Yeah, it's very interesting. Like I've never even heard of that kind of workflow, so that's why I ask. Like I've always just taken it from live,
Well,
I'm
we
happy
can
to
do
go
it here.
quick if you guys won't. Give me a second. I can log into that computer.
Yeah, might as well. Hey, one thing just to circle back on was that we had in our agenda was anticipation. I know we touched on it a little bit, but can't mention enough how important that is. Like when you look at the call sheet for the day, if you see you're on scene 3, but yesterday you shot scene 2 and it's taking place in the same bedroom, bring up the reference images, bring up the CDLs that you had, apply them, and just let the DP know, like, hey, same look is on there, same corrections from yesterday. Here's what we shot. Just want you to see it. And that kind of stuff goes a really long way.
Yeah. Also, I bring up scene 4 to bring up scene, the previous scene and the scene preceding. I'll have the stills from that. And an interesting trick that I discovered recently to allow you to have more stills that you can switch between really easily is that you can load a still into slots. And then if you are unpinned on the library slot, you can then switch between your slots, and you could have, as many stills quickly accessible as you do slots. That's an interesting little trick that's recently I figured out in LiveGrade.
That's nice. Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I've had like the DP run into my tent and be like, "Can you bring up the still for?" Oh yeah. Oh great, you already have it. Thanks.
Yeah,
that's huge.
That's huge.
That ready is huge.
So I think what Chandler's probably gonna pull up his.
I think Chandler, are you able to share your screen? Are you set up? We can't hear you.
He's probably
unmute yourself, bro.
He's freshening up his drink right now.
He's
Give him
hoping
a second.
that the boot drive works on his Hackintosh.
We're going to be watching a web stream of a VNC connection to a computer in his garage.
Yeah. Adam, did you have another question?
Yeah, about the HHS node. I've tried using it a little bit to do some sort of minor secondary work, mostly playing with like saturation values and stuff. And I get a lot of weird colors. Does anybody have any suggestions or fixes to using that node properly? I know obviously if you stretch it, like you want green to be purple, it's gonna fuck with things. But I'm talking about like, oh, I want to reduce warm skin tones, so I'll pull the red back a bit, and then it gets all wonky. Anybody tried fooling around with that and had success?
Only when exporting it as a cube.
Yeah, it doesn't work with CDL value.
Right.
No, I know that, but I mean, like, I'm manipulating the saturation wheel node, and then I'm looking on my OLED monitor, and I'm getting like pixelation on like the shoulder of an actor's sweater because it's that sort of color, and it's like I can't leave that up there for the DP to see. He's gonna be like, what the hell's going on? And then it goes through as a cube, and it messes that up. So I don't think it's like the FDI feed.
More just a limitation of the like CDL cube kind of thing, right? Instead of not secondaries.
Hey, have you tried to put that HSS correction below the output LUT?
No, I haven't. I'll try that next time. Thanks for mentioning that. Because I always wanted to
pulling off of a log signal, not like a color corrected image. You know what I mean? Or yeah, like what he's showing you. So if you put
You're thinking if I change the order of operations, I'll have
more color to pull.
Okay.
The HHS node wants to have a linear image.
Yeah.
Also, the output of the cameras. I mean, it's 10-bit signals 422, but I mean, all those outputs are like half precision debair. They're not very clean. Plus, you usually have HD transmitters in there. But little side note, HHS is nice if you want to do a quick look at an image and get rid of like a chroma screen, so like green screen or blue screen if you're trying to check color levels on a face without having that bias in there. It's a good tool for that.
Okay. Yeah. Because I did bake it into a LUT and then applied that as a LUT on the clip once it had been downloaded in SilverStack, and it looked exactly like my stills did. But granted, I'll try what you mentioned, Jamie. I'll try to introduce it at the end of the order of operations and see if it gives me a better preview. So thanks.
I don't think it's going to be a world of a difference better because of all the limitations Chris said, but I think you actually might grab on the colors better.
Well, yeah, I was just trying to illustrate to the DP like a way of making a slightly more artistic basic secondaries look, you know, doing what LiveGrade does. We're doing it live without the delay of what Resolve Live does. But it didn't work out the way I had hoped, so I had to sort of abandon it, unfortunately. But
paging Scratch.
Yeah, I was gonna say the Scratch Live hue versus hue saturation controls and stuff like that is much better.
Their controls are a lot
program, right?
more precise.
It's got a long way to go, but the controls are nice.
That's the new program that we got an email about a few weeks ago, I think, right?
Yeah, you can download the beta.
Right.
Now that in the Scratch program, is that information exportable as a CDL? No, right?
No.
No.
Okay, just checking, because I don't know how I could use that on a regular basis, you know.
Well, you know, the show,
Scratch for your dailies, that's all.
The last show I did, I actually had to make a really strong hue saturation change. I'm sorry, saturation change. And I actually went into freestyle mode just for this one shot, and it exported a mesh file because I knew they were on ColorFront, a cube, everything that I could, and I sent, you know, stills, whatever. And actually, a 3D mesh file went right into ColorFront, and it worked perfectly. But would that work for visual effects and everyone else? I doubt it. But at least they knew what we were going for. But that's also I communicated with my Dailies guy to give him the heads up on that.
In the past, I've done that kind of workflow within Resolve, made an actual 3D LUT, then brought that into LiveGrade.
Yeah, that would sort of be the way, but then you'd have to start tracking an additional LUT on a long form show.
Yeah, that means like a new base LUT.
Yeah, I just did it as a one-off. But somebody was asking about, or Curtis was asking about Live Looks, which is the Assimilate program. We just did a conference with Mazzy, who's like the product manager, the other day. Totally unrelated to this. But we're going to do another one if you guys want to join, and you guys can download the program and get a feel for it. He's looking for feedback, but we'll talk about that in another session. Can we talk about regrading real quick? Romano, I know you wanted to talk about that and how important it is to grab stills and log and then be able to regrade later.
Yeah.
And then
I often regrade the stills that I've taken throughout the day. A lot of times you'll be doing exterior work. You'll start early in the morning, and the scene, you'll be shooting it all day. You know, you have several talents sitting around a table outside or something like that, you know, and you find that you end up losing your way a little bit. So what ends up happening is the DP changes their mind on how they want it to look as we've gotten further into a large, extensive, either a full day or a multi-day scene or something like that. So often what I'll do, the real benefit of grabbing them in log, is before I do the break, maybe I'll grab them as we're going to lunch or something and be like, hey, you want to just take a quick look at what we did. The light changed all morning. We were matching, but you had to be making changes, you know? And it sort of makes them take an overall look at it. We show them all those like 5-star stills that you grabbed, you know, and you can switch between them, and they get a real sense of what you've had there and how it's changed throughout the day. And you'll see that over the course of that day, it really, really swapped a lot. So you can make those changes. I update the stills and the CDLs. It's as if you did it live, and then you just send it along. And it's been super useful to me personally. I think that being able to grab your stills and log has completely changed the way that I use LiveGrade and do live grading in every single way. Like, it's a massive benefit. If you guys aren't doing that now, I would say check it out, because it really, really can make things easier when you're working with DPs who want to change their look as they go along. Does anyone have any questions for how that works? Maybe they're confused about it or anything like that.
It'd be good if you can show us at some point. Probably not tonight though, right?
Show us what? I don't have video input, but I have LiveGrade open with a project that has stills in it.
Yeah, Chandler's going to show us something, then you take over and you'll show us yours, all right? And Steve had a question.
Cool.
Well, if he wants to go ahead while he's talking, I can hold off if you prefer.
Yeah, it doesn't take very long. I could just show you guys really quickly.
All right, yeah. All right, so Romano, but Steve, you got a question while Romano's going?
Well, it just goes back to the caps. I've been using caps a lot on commercials and stuff, and there's no way to capture logs still that I'm in because I'm not feeding it log, you know?
There is no way, yeah.
Definitely true. And if you're in that workflow,
What if you also have a image capture device applied to that slot?
So I have an image. That's the other fucked up thing about it. It seems to double LUT it on the Blackmagic recorder.
You can put it at the beginning of the chain, but you won't be able to update it, unfortunately.
Well, so that's the other question, Picot, for you. When I add my Blackmagic device, I have like a Duo card in my computer. I delete the box IO capture input just to have the faster feed. Do you have an issue having both of those in the slots? That was kind of a side question. As for Aaron, if you're still there, buddy.
Can you hear me? Sorry, buddy. I forgot to. I haven't had to hold down the space bar all night. I've just kept my mic open. No, I found that if you add a capture device to the slot, it just defaults to that.
Okay, good to know. Good to know. But yeah, if I'm doing caps and I have my Blackmagic card, it any still I take is like a double. It doubles up on it. But all the footage I bring into Resolve is perfect.
Isn't that
should be a
perfect?
Yeah, there should be. You should be able to turn that off.
Set up the capture device instead of being like straight camera feed. You say it as colored or whatever.
Yeah,
there is a way here. I'm actually looking for it right now. It's been ages since I've seen it, but there is a way.
We didn't go over area cap. We were kind of saving that towards like the very end. But for commercial workflows, it's awesome.
Because there's no real reason to like regrade a still in commercials, right?
No, probably not, right?
Regrade it and Resolve secondaries and power windows.
Yeah. So like just being able to give them a look as they're shooting it is great, and then you fix it all later.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is our endless quest for better Wi-Fi control on set, so you can control the cameras even better.
So really quickly though, what I was talking about here, I'm just going to show you guys really fast. I think Picot may have gone over this, so I'm just going to be pretty brief with it. So let's say we've got these stills here, right? And I'm using a Stream Deck to load these. So I have a button called Load SDI, and it loads this image into the library slot down here. This is just the viewer. This is the slot itself, right? When you have the library slot selected and it's highlighted, any control changes that you make are going to occur to that, but they are not saved to your clip here in your library unless you update them, right? So in other words, if we're looking at this shot here, right? And, we got homeboy, we want to say, oh, we want to make it really blue, right? You'll notice it changes here, it does not change there, right? Now, if I were to say update, and admittedly, update and apply are very confusing because apply points up, update points down. The image down here is what you're affecting. It's going up there.
So
everything is backwards. I know. So all you have to remember is you just have to remember the verbiage. And if you're one of those people that turns only the icons on up there, change that. Stick with the verbiage. That's the important part, right? So now that I've updated that, I would now take that and load that still as my reference. Now I've got it on both sides, although looks like I have a flipped reference. There we go.
Any way that you could pick a frame that doesn't have his face in it, because we are recording this.
Oh, you fucks. Well, it's a little late. Okay. Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go.
There you go.
All right, what's this one? Let me see. This one's good too.
Now I'm gonna have to bring this into iMovie and chop this.
Fuck. All right, put a marker in your timeline. Okay, so here we go. We got this car, right? We want it to be blue, right? So we've made it blue. but the car is not blue. So now what I have to do is I have to update this. And now I've updated it. So now I just modify the CDL associated with that. Remember that at any time, I can also bypass the CDL or bypass the entire image pathway altogether and only look at the raw captured image, right? All of this stuff I have, you don't see my mouse moving, I'm doing it all from a Stream Deck, right? So now let's say, okay, so the DP says we like this, right? So what I'll then do is I'll load that as the reference on the other side. Now we've got the reference and the library shot, they're the same image. But we're gonna make this other image up here, we're gonna make that one match this. Now that we know this blue one is how we like it to look, we've got this other scene and we're like, that doesn't quite match. So now we can correct that one to match, right? And once we like what we see, we can say update. And now the way that I do a lot of stuff with the 5 stars, this works out well. I will go through and hit list because you'll only get a DP's eyes for a few moments, right? And they say, okay, I like that, I like that, I like that, a little bit more of this. Okay, those are great. Make everything look like that. And then they walk away. So then I would go through and bring the rest of them up one at a time. These are all different setups, right? And then I would affect it, change it, and every other still that I have of that setup, I would also update. So you can select multiple ones and update all of them in one shot with the look that is stored here, right? What this does is when they go, if you're lazy about updating them all, when for some reason we want to come back and they want to find something, right? Even if it's something stupid, like which hand he was holding the gun in, you know, and you pull up a frame that doesn't match what the final color correction was supposed to be if you didn't update all the stills that you have, and then you're going through all your stills, someone invariably, usually the DP is going to go, did we really make it look like that? And you have to be like, no, this isn't what it looked like. So religiously go in there and update your stuff to all match. When you do update something, update any time that you've used that. I found that to be very, very helpful. But that's basically the regrading idea, and then you just spit them out. And I've had things before where studio got pissy, it was too dark, they didn't like it, it was so dark. DP's like, we got to regrade that. Are we going to have to go in there tonight? And I go, no. And I just pull up the stills and we regrade it, you know, and then I just push the stills and the CDLs with a specific note to our Dailies colorist or operator that we want to redo that particular scene or particular piece of material, you know. And it works out really well, and you can save this. Like here, I've even got regrade. Look at this. Regrade entire deposition room sequence. That's Paul, right? So there was like, redo this. No, we can't look at that. Redo this sequence, right? So we redid it. We redid the whole thing. And if you look, we actually made it darker, right? But we had that log material to work from the entire time, which was a real benefit and really helped us out there. So that's what I would say about being able to regrade. And that's really where the benefit of capturing a log comes into play. And yes, airy cap, you're not going to have that benefit, but frankly, how often are you going to need to do the kind of things that I just talked about in a commercial environment? Not very often. Never. But Harnell, we talked about this not too long ago at Keslow, and remember I was saying, do it the same way every time, right? As far as like capturing stills and punching in metadata and all that stuff, if you are always staying on top of how you do it and you have a method, regardless of how the particular show's thing is different, you'll find that these things become more automated. Even though in a commercial world, these seem like alien things, one day you're gonna have to do a series, you know, and you're gonna have to get hip to some way of managing these. It doesn't have to be how I do it necessarily, but there's gonna have to be some plan, and just preparing yourself to always do it the same way is super helpful, because then it's just rote memory, you know. So that's what I would say to commercial guys who are like, I'm never gonna need to do this. Well, if you always do it the same way, no matter what, as far as like capturing stills for every take and all that kind of stuff, you know, if you're on top of it, then it becomes second nature. And that's what I would say about that stuff. So I'll pass the torch on.
There's a quick request to show your router controls.
My router controls?
Yeah, I don't know why.
where is that? I don't ever look at it. It's all just on the Stream Deck and on an iPad.
It's under the LiveGrade menu. Go to LiveGrade and go down to video routing. There you go.
Hey, by the way, guys, we do plan on doing like an advanced version of this if you guys would be interested in, where we get deeper into CAP, automations, router control, all that kind of stuff. So you guys are interested, let us know.
I love it, dude. It's kill DIT.
Oh yeah, kill DIT is to get everyone out of the tent. I push kill DIT and every monitor on my cart goes black.
I got a button that kills every monitor on set, and it's called Kill 'Em All.
Nice.
There you go. There you go. And if you look here too, I've got both my portable system and my large systems stuff in there. So I had to really skin things different for the 16 by. There just isn't enough IO on that thing to really do what you want to do, you know. Although honestly, now that I look at it, this is a fucking disaster from the last show. Everything just got changed.
That happens every show.
Yeah, I do have sort of a set system though that I return everything to. I just haven't done it. You know.
Companion solves a lot of these problems.
What does? Oh, Companion?
Companion, yeah. I mean, my show now, I have 3 router frames, and I control them all from my Stream Deck. I mean, it's pretty science fiction some days.
You know what the truth is, though? I played with Companion, and I have used the Video Hubs, the Blackmagic ones, and they have that iPad control, and I have an iPad matched to every Video Hub that I have. Like, I have an iPad for it, like, dedicated to it, you know? And that's where I do most of my stuff. I really only use this for some of the complicated macro stuff.
For sure, but you know, keep in mind that like the Blackmagic routers, you have button mapping and macros, and you know and while the Kumo router frames have macros, getting to them is not easy. So it's a lot. I found. You know, I have some keystrokes that change 30 or 40 cross points in 3 different frames. It's much easier just to list out what output goes to what input goes to what output, and just throw it on a key. You know.
Well, that's what these are, right? But I thought I didn't need too much more than that, and I just built them into this. Because honestly, I looked at like I haven't played with Companion that much. I know we're kind of veering a little bit off topic, but I was like, I just can't handle resetting up an entire system with one additional package of software and settings. I was just so over it, you know. It was particularly with LiveGrade because none of this shit exports correctly. I can't portabilize this information. I have a feeling Companion's probably a little better at that, and I may look into that.
I have to say it was the shock of shocks when I realized that it was aware if you know the frames have different IP addresses, and it was very happy to be able to, it knew which frame was which, and like, you know, that was a very happy day for me.
And you don't have to worry about your top level application, and you can also control your key press and key release separately.
Mm.
And a bunch of other like really cool goodies too. I mean, like, you know, also, you know, imagine I have like a DP, he's got a router. I had to line up the inputs on that router so that everything he would ever need was on 16 buttons on the top row, because like, no, press shift. Yeah, right. I broke the router again. Yeah, I know you did. So,
hey, is Companion 2 out of beta, Dave?
You know what? I've been using it for about a year, and I think they said it was that it either was, but I've had 0 problems.
All right, because I was thinking we should all just chip in some money and get that developer to just focus on getting that done for us for Aja.
I mean, I give him $50 to write the thing.
All right, if we all give them $10 each, we could get this done.
Well, real quickly, before I take my screen off, does anyone have any questions about the idea behind capturing in log and then regrading before exporting, or anything related to this topic?
Is LiveGrade Studio helping you do that any better than regular LiveGrade Pro? What's the advantage of Studio?
Studio is basically a way for me to take some money and throw it into a hole in the earth.
Yeah, that's why.
You're helping your tax write-off is what you're saying.
No,
It's
I
the,
don't
it's
know.
the it's the boat ownership of what we.
Let me fucking tell you something that what I paid for the most with this was that my Stream Deck buttons, if you go into any one of these, the first one that tells you which program it is that it opens, guess what? LiveGrade/Studio is not the same as LiveGrade Pro. I had to change every fucking one of these things, right? I mean, it was bad. It was like super bad. But no, as far as benefits go, you get, this is something that's important too, because this is probably going to bite people, right? If you don't use LiveGrade much, and then like the first time you go to use this, do you guys see this if I zoom in on my screen or no?
No, we tested that earlier. It doesn't work.
Okay,
no good.
Well, anyways, you know how you have this printer lights, the SPL, LGG, and CDL grading modes, right? I think it's kind of
to help you out.
Oh, that's kind of cool. Yeah. So down here, I don't know. Maybe I can make this a little bigger. Not really, I guess. Anyways, these modes. So the way that LiveGrade handles order of operations is that they say that this node right here, not that whole thing that he's got selected, just the top CDL node, right? So each one of these different grading modes are only affecting the same values. So you have offset, power, and slope. No matter what they call it, you are only affecting offset, power, and slope. So if you guys look at this,
that's correct.
The waveform right here, and you see this effect curve, right? If you were to turn the contrast slider, right, and you see it changes my effect curve, but now if we go to CDL, and you look at the values, offset and slope have been changed. Now this is a particular hot shit disaster, because if a DP says, okay, I want you to, you know, give me a little bit of slope up, take the offset down, and then later they say, you know what, do it in contrast, right? Okay, so give me more contrast. Oh, I don't like that. Reset contrast. Guess what just happened? It just totally jacked this up. These are not at the values they were before, right? And that's been a big problem that I've been trying to get. I was in the beta for Studio when they first started introducing some of these modes. And the first note I had for them, I was like, there's a huge bug. When you reset one of these things, it fucks with all the others. And they were like, no, that's how it's supposed to work. So I don't know, maybe you guys agree with me, maybe not.
I disagree with you. That's if you wanted to store a CDL, then it has to. Then ultimately, it's going to affect the SOP, no matter how you interact with it.
Exactly. But check this out. So this is what I was hoping they would do, is that because you can have, say you're in CDL Advanced, you can have multiple CDL nodes, right? Why couldn't they treat each one of these as a CDL node? And when you export it, it just folds them all together mathematically. You know, that works now, but they're not doing it that way. So if you were to do something like this and then go here and like do something and then go, oh, I need to reset that, it will totally jack up the other settings. So that's really something you should be aware of.
That's what the history is for, right? I mean, that's why you save things in scratch pads. I mean,
yeah.
I'm surprised that's actually causing you to stumble.
Well, no, I understand the process of it. I understand what's going on, but so often we're making very fine adjustments. You know, I mean, everybody's workflows may be a little different. I just wanted to make sure that people were aware that these things are really all working in the exact same values, no matter which one you're in here. So if you reset something, it will change what the other values are. This is most apparent when you're using external surfaces and you make a change and then you push reset on that change. You go, I didn't like that. Well, it just now affected what you did with your other, you know, the wheels when you just turned a knob, right?
So then you go into history and you go back 2 minutes and you double click on it and you're back where you were.
Yes, you can do that. That's true. Now everybody knows that they are all linked together, though. It's an important thing to understand.
Hey, let's go to
frankly, Dave, I don't use that history thing as a disaster. Do you use the history thing?
I hate
all the time because I want to. I never want to look at the screen again. I want to do it all on the tangent panel, and I love. I mean, it was a kind of a surprise when I put 5.1 in there and my panel didn't work while I was at work. But 10 minutes later, it's like, oh, duh, nothing's mapped. And now I'm just in love. I'm in love with the whole thing. But yes, I use the history quite a bit.
Yeah, I hate the history. Anyways, I'll give the floor up. If anybody else wants to see anything, you know, I guess I don't know how to stop sharing my thing here.
Well,
I've got a question before you move on.
Yeah.
How do you capture log images and not feed them out to everybody? Like, you maintain a color image the whole time, right? While you're capturing your log stills?
Yes.
Yeah, it's how you route it. You have to route you route in the log image and you route out your LUT box.
Okay.
If you're recording video, it actually, there's a setting I can show you in a moment when you're setting up your recording devices.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't record video at all. I can't really speak to that that particular portion of it, you know. But it's always capturing the log, but you're never looking at it unless you tell it, you know, unless you click original and say I want to see the original feed, you know, the original image, right? So it always has that mask behind it for everybody. You know, only if you turn it off will it show everyone that.
Okay. And my second question was about what you were talking about with everything being affected. Is there a way in LiveGrade to do an A/B, like a before/after?
Just by selecting your different shots in the middle section right there, the shot library, all the stills that he's grabbed, exactly. So if you have, that's another reason why you want to be grabbing stills all the time, is because that's kind of a history window as well right there, but with actual thumbnails so you can see what you were doing, and you can pop it into the library. So you can always go forward or back or whatever you want to do to A/B. You can also do you can load a one of your shots that you grabbed in your library window, and then you can load another one as a reference and kind of wipe back and forth and A/B that way. Or you can do something you grabbed before over the live image that you're currently watching and kind of side by side at that.
Okay.
Which I know is probably just saying that sentence. I mean, if you don't have like the setup in front of you, I understand how that can be confusing.
It's kind of, there isn't a great way. I know exactly what he's saying. It's kind of a weird workaround, but I mean, I really don't think there's quite a better way, and I had never really put thought into how to berate Patrick into coming up with a better way.
Yeah, because in Resolve, if the DP comes in and says, oh, can you crush the blacks more? I'll throw up another node. I'll crush the blacks and I'll turn it on and off so he can see this is where we were, this is where we are. This is where we were, this is where we are.
This is one of the reasons why I wanted those grading modes separated, so that you could basically maybe turn each one of them on and off. As it stands, though, the way LiveGrade treats those vertical nodes, their nodes only operate stacked on top of each other, not like in Resolve where they're like a free panel, you know? You could just keep creating more nodes, more CDL nodes, and have them separated like that. Although I have a feeling you might find that quickly that gets complicated, but you could do it that way if you wanted to. And there is a checkbox on the left side of each node. It's visible down there on the screen right now. I don't know whose screen that is, but it's there. You can turn that checkbox on and off, and that will turn that node on and off in the image pathway. There you go, just like that.
You could also do use your look presets, which I never used, but you could use that for what Scott's talking about.
Yeah, I think it'd be hard when you're like creating a look right there and they say, turn that on, turn that off. You know, some people are really like that with the like, show me one, show me the other, show me one, no, show me the other, no, show me the one from 2 ago. Then we're in Dave's history box, you know.
That's always a fucking test when they do that, man.
I know, but it's a great question. It is, I think maybe for what you're talking about, the multiple things, but the problem is if you give them a bunch of CDL nodes and then they like that and they want to keep calling that up, you're going to be stuck dealing with a thing that has a whole bunch of CDL nodes. you'd have to export that CDL and then re-import it into only one node. Because if you export it, will fold all the CDL nodes into one mathematically, right?
Hey Scott, I missed the beginning of your question, but I think you're talking about like making different versions to show to a DP real fast. Is that right?
Yeah, like just A being a certain color change or a shift of some sort.
I just make new shots. Stills. Just make a new shot and just double click in the library there. Just boop boop boop. You know what I mean?
That's where the proficiency comes in for sure.
Yeah.
Because I'm mostly working in caps, so.
Still though, just right here where I'm fantastically drawing some kind of shape. just like when they wanted to change, just fucking make the change, like it, make a new look, and if you have time, rename it so you remember what it was, you know. But yeah, I mean that should be able to do it, right? Or am I missing what you're saying?
No, that would do it.
Yeah.
You know what you could do is duplicate a look. So grab the look of the actor standing in there, duplicate it, and then you can have two different ones that you then, you click on it and you say, load it in the library slot, and they say, okay, let me see the other one. You just click on the other one, load it in the library slot, and that becomes a very easy way to go back and forth and to save both of those looks, and you can update the look as needed,
Yeah, that makes sense.
If you're only doing one camera as well, you can always use dual channel mode in the box AO, load the one look on A channel, and then freely grade in the B channel and have it up on your like a split screen on your monitor, so you can see like what they liked and then where you're deferring from, and you know what I mean. So you can have kind of like a stored look that they liked, and then the departure from that stored look on the right side, if you will.
I do that a lot. I'll show it to the DP first to say, we got to try something different, and we'll just start playing around. And usually, like, wait, is everyone seeing this shit? I'm like, no, just us. They're still seeing it. We're on Box.io number 4, dual channel, whatever, you know what I mean? And then when they're happy with it, usually after the take, then I'll push it out to the monitors. So take 2 will all of a sudden have our look, right?
That's useful for commercial workflows too.
Yeah, there's a lot of
just send 709 to the village until you have the look figured out, and then pipe the look to village.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it.
Right.
Hey, real quick, I want to get to Chandler's workflow real quick, but Chandler, can I just show one quick thing that I discovered during this this thing? Let me just share my screen. We were talking about like clip name. Hold on a second. Shit, it always fucks everything up. But if you're using a Bolt XT with like the newer firmware on here, time code to address Tyler's question does come through, along with a lot of this metadata. So like the ISO, shutter angle, white balance, ND filters. I think we had to change there. So like an ND6, the Zeiss Master Prime would change. But then also to Brandon's point, clip name actually came through. But the problem is it only changes when I make a new CDL or frame grab. So I'm not sure how useful that would be, Brandon, if you're still there, but you can see that A182 lines up with A182 clip 8. So it's there. And then also you get camera tilt, camera roll, and this all was coming over SDI.
It's useful if it's there. It's just a matter of how it gets out of LiveGrade and into something that can be ported into a Dailies pipeline that tracks all the way along, right? Like a CDL doesn't pass any of that shit. So it's like, what's
the CDL name? If it had this clip name in it, would that help you guys?
Yeah, but that's not part of the standard for CDL clip name. Like if you name the CDL the clip name, yes, but that doesn't get carried inside. If you call the CDL whatever you call it inside the CDL itself, that doesn't exist.
My thing just crashed. But anyways, let's go to Chandler's window.
All right, guys. Let's see here. All right, so much like Michael Romano, I was dealing with a lot of DPs who would change their mind halfway through a scene, or we'd be losing daylight or something like that. So I'd have to go back and make a lot of changes. And I really hated how I was unable to do anything with that, at least in the past with LiveGrade. They've made a lot of updates lately. So you can do a lot more inside of LiveGrade now than you used to be able to. But I've kind of defaulted to this workflow, and maybe it'll be helpful for somebody, maybe not. But so what I do is Oh, shoot, wrong computer. All right, so I come in here, devices, as I was mentioning earlier. You come in, you can add a capture device. Once you choose your input, you just choose direct camera output. So what that's going to be doing is that's actually recording a log image, but it still allows LiveGrade to do everything it needs to with the actual looks. And anything that you load into your library will actually have the looks applied to them when you pull it up. But needless to say, it is a log image at its base. So I'm not going to get into naming conventions and all of that right now. We kind of discussed all that earlier. But for me, my basic workflow is I create a separate bin for each setup. Once I am done with a setup, I then export that entire setup as a PFLA. I'm recording every single take to a SSD RAID on my cart. And so basically I'm recording every take, saving the information. I'm then coming into SilverStack. I'm gonna do this kind of quick and dirty here. We can go into more details if people have questions, but basically come in, I find my recordings, I load those shots in much like you would load a card in. I only create a new name if it's actually a new scene. For this, I'm just adding in an extra setup here, so I'm gonna leave it as it is. No point in naming that setup. I'm gonna delete it later.
Hey, Chandler, real quick.
Yep.
This library that you're showing us in SilverStack, does this also have your camera negative in it as well, or is this just your LiveGrade library in SilverStack?
So in SilverStack, it has the negative. It has the log
as well.
Yep, as well. Yep.
Got it.
So what I'm doing right now is I'm actually, if we go into here and let's see. So as you can see, this is a log image. I haven't done anything to it yet.
Chandler, that's because you're capturing the log image in LiveGrade, right?
That is correct, yes.
And that image that you're capturing is what you're bringing in, but not the file that the camera is recording.
Correct, yes.
But
because
for all intents and purposes, it's one-to-one because it's log.
Correct, because for me, I'm using a loader to do my data backup for safety reasons and other reasons. But yeah, so this allows me to kind of have a camera negative to some degree. It's not perfect, but it gets the job done. I'm not doing playback, so as long as I get 90% of it or whatever, that's fine. So from here, I'll then load in, let's see, where is it? PFLAs, come to my appropriate PFLA, open it up, links up. Now it brings all my metadata in and it's applied all my looks to these shots.
Can you let me know? Can you tell me real quick, just when you're importing the PFLA, just show everybody that, because there's like 4, 5, 6 different ways to.
Yep, I'm gonna delete this. I gotta restart because it won't let me do it otherwise.
Don't you love how they call it unregister?
Yeah.
For fucking years.
And it kills me if you try to use the command delete option to delete like a CDL, it will delete the folder or bin that you are currently selected on. It is a pain in the ass. All right, so for me, my ACs have really, really shitty transmitters. So I do not get time code. So unfortunately, I cannot import based off of time code. So I am currently set up based off of clip identifier. You can see right here. So I am choosing to, I worked with Pomfort to get them to save the file name as how you have it set up as your wildcard inside of LiveGrade. So that way, the way I have it set up in LiveGrade right here, clip identifier, is how it is, 1 second.
Okay, so you're saving your recordings,
right? So it's
as the clip identifier.
Correct, yeah. So then when I'm loading it into SilverStack, it loads those files based on the clip identifier.
There wouldn't be any other way to tie those clips together if you
I then match my looks based on clip identifier, and boom, now the appropriate looks are applied to the appropriate. It brings over any metadata you may have. In this case, I have limited metadata, so there's not a whole lot there. Where this comes really handy for me is that, as I mentioned before, you've got complete control to change anything you need to. But what I really like is that, I'm just going to do this real quick here. Whatever, that's fine. Is that at least in labs, you can pull up mode. And so I can actually export this out to one of my monitors, and now my DP has basically kind of like a storyboard mode of what we've been shooting. And we're then able to match the current shot that we're doing to what we've been doing. So this allows him to look at how we've been looking around the room, how we were lighting based on different angles, things of that nature. So my DP currently is constantly using this feature. He even learned my router just so he can pull it up when he needs to, if I'm not at the cart, or just whenever he wants to jump back and forth or whatever. So
are you piping this out of SDI onto your monitor?
Correct, yes. Yep. So you've got this feature, and then the other thing I found that is really nice about this is that it gives me personally an overview of everything, because as our eyes look at the same scene over and over, they're going to naturally white balance. So there's a lot of times that I thought something was a good match, and then I go back and I look at 34A as compared to 34E, and all of a sudden there's a huge yellow shift. And here I'm able to actually see that shift, and then go in and adjust the according clips. Once you've selected the clip, you can come in and change whatever you need to, blah 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 blah.
Are you doing straight from SilverStack out to the monitor, or are you actually like looping your SilverStack feed back through LiveGrade and then out?
No. It's going directly from SilverStack out into my monitor.
Oh.
Yep.
And can you group a couple of clips so that your correction is applied to all, like say 3 at the same time?
I do not believe so. I haven't really delved into that, honestly, so I can't.
Right.
You may be able to, but it's not anything I've looked into.
Right.
Sorry, Chandler.
Yeah.
I have a question. Are you taking all 6 of these clips and like showing them as a split on your screen all at once?
Correct. Yes. Hold on one second. I can show you. This is going to be really. I'm not prepared for this, so I apologize.
It's because the viewer window is what the output is over SDI.
Oh, wow. I had no idea that SilverStack could do that.
Yeah, if anybody, it has to be SilverStack Lab. There's a big difference.
No, XT. It can be.
Yeah, okay, XT can do as well. Okay. So if anybody will look at my actual face, I'm going to turn my camera around real quick. And so there's my monitor.
Nice.
So that's what they're seeing. And you can do up to 12 images at a time. Unfortunately, that's the max they'll allow. So if you
Chandler, hit Command apostrophe and show them where it is in the menu setup.
Oh, sure.
So Scott, once it comes up, you'll see what I'm talking about. So you see external video.
Yep.
If it sees that you've got an output device loaded, that's you got to make sure it's there, but that's what'll come out. Whatever's in the viewing window, whether it's the 1 frame or lots of frames, and you can play a whole bunch of frames at the same time too.
And you can also A/B as well, just like you do in LiveGrade.
What's really obnoxious about this is that I've been asking Patrick for this function in LiveGrade for years. For years, I've been sending him what are becoming ever increasingly like threatening emails for this function with stills. It would be just a different way of doing it. But I was like, dude, if they could do it in labs, why can't they just do it for fucking stills in LiveGrade? It does not do it. LiveGrade will not do that.
So for me, when I'm happy with everything that I've done, I then come into my list here, and here's where I actually export my CDLs. So I'll go down my list, 34A, I'll add my look there. 34B, add my look there. And I don't add another CDL until something has actually changed. So now at 34A, CCAM, boom, I'm going to create a new CDL. Now, if I've gone back and adjusted something like we did here, this is going to be a new look. So I know I need to create a new CDL here. I'll come in, 34B, do that. I quickly apply it to all the 34B shots that were B cameras. Where we go, boom. Apply my looks. And then what I do is I just mark, I mark a little flag here, and that flag goes out on my report so that it's just another fail-safe for the Dailies operator to know that that CDL has been adjusted, and that's when they need to start changing clips over to the new CDL. And then, let's see what we got. And then the other benefit is that once you've got all this here, this handy little function right here allows you to take your still image, and you can take your stills of the exact frames that you want instead of randomly grabbing them as you're shooting. So SilverStack also has a nice new feature I just found out about today with the updates. Let's see, where are we at? General. Nope. Here we go. You can choose to color mode. You can do original color and as shown in player. So you can take both log stills as well as Rec 709 stills.
Nice.
That way you can hand off one set to post, and then you can keep your own set. Because for me, with my my RAID setup, I can keep like 4 episodes, and beyond that, I actually have to actually come in and I just have a separate folder within Days that are just stills. So if I have to pull up old episodes for reference or something like that, I then have the stills because I can't keep that much video on my hard drives.
Awesome.
And then as we were mentioning, another reason I like to do this in SilverStack as opposed to LiveGrade is, as we were speaking about earlier, give me 1 second, I'm gonna set up for this.
Hey, when you get a chance, Chris is asking to show the CDL export process so we understand that.
Yeah, absolutely. Give me just 1 second. Where are we at? Shots.
Betsy, how you holding up, bud?
Shot descriptions here. So for example, in here I can do nope, let's do hallway. So there we go. Now every single scene that's in a hospital hallway is going to come up. So I may have like Central Park, I may have Times Square, whatever, like that sort of thing. I don't have to actually go and wait and try and find the script supervisor to figure out where something was. If my DP says, hey, I need to quickly match this to the last time we were at this location, I can just pull up every single time we've been at that location for the DP to look at and make references.
It's pretty cool, dude. I gotta say, it seems a little cumbersome, but I see the value in it.
It is a little, yeah. It's not perfect, and I'm working with Pomfort to try and smooth some of this out. But it's definitely a work in progress for sure. So let's do 34 here. And it's a lot faster when I'm working on set. I'm not really prepared for this. So here's all our CDLs, for example. And so when I go to export it, I just select all, right click, export selected looks, and just like in LiveGrade, exact same situation, choose whatever you want, choose your folder, save them. And then naming scheme, for me, I just have it based off of the look name, which is the name that I've actually named over here on the CDLs themselves.
What are you recording the log video files as? Just like ProRes 422 or?
Yes, the highest setting, I think it's 422 HQ maybe. Yeah, 422 HQ.
What are you using to record your video?
I have a Blackmagic Decklink Quad 2. So that gives me 4 inputs, 4 outputs.
Do you mind opening up your system settings and to see that your video card settings in the system?
Sure. So there you go. So I have input A, B, C, and D, and then my 4 outputs. And I haven't delved into it because I don't know enough about SDI toolkits, but supposedly with this card, you can completely map them however you want. So you could have 8 inputs if you want, or 6 inputs, 2 outputs, whatever is best for your system. I'm running off default right now. I don't need more than the 4 inputs at this time.
So you understand, Steve, that he's adding that device in his devices tab in LiveGrade.
So
right under there.
Yep. Add device, add capture device. I choose my input. I don't have there's no video feed right now, but you pick the appropriate video feed. You choose, what do you want it to be? 1080p, 23. You choose the camera type. That way it'll bring over the appropriate metadata if you're actually able to get that metadata. You choose your decode level, and then here, as I said, direct camera output will actually record a log file, but will still allow you to manipulate it as normal within LiveGrade.
Arnold, that's what we were talking about earlier too with Airy Cap and not getting a double LUTed graph.
Right. Yeah, I probably have the wrong box. I have the Duo card. It has 4 inputs, and you can make them either inputs or outputs. But I'm having a weird thing sometimes. I'll reboot my computer maybe 3 or 4 times. It'll be a different job. And what I've had set up in LiveGrade, the input will change. And so I have to go in system settings.
I've had that issue as well with the Blackmagic Quad 2. Yeah, sometimes they like to jump around a little bit. Yep.
It's like an HD link all over again.
Unfortunately.
Oh God.
So that was really quick and dirty. If anybody has any more detailed questions, I'm happy to go into it. I just didn't want to waste too much time.
No, I love it, dude. I mean, we've been asking Pomfort to kind of combine those functionalities forever. Because I think like what everyone's seeing is like being able to reference material over months is super important along with the metadata. Because now that you have this stuff in here, you can export this to the cloud and have a lot more useful information.
So as you can see, here's my episodes. I've got 22 episodes worth of information blocked out by day, lunch and wrap, and then I have a folder just for the stills.
Yeah.
And I can reference any of that at any point in time as the DP or anyone else on set needs to see it.
What do you do?
The other reason I do video as well is because stills are really nice, but a lot of times the DP will be like, hey, I really want to see such and such at this exact point in the room. And if I didn't grab a still, then I'm fucked. I can't show them that. So this way I can literally just scroll to that exact frame and say, hey, is this what you want to see? Yeah, perfect. So
what do you do when you have to go mobile? How does this fall apart?
My question exactly.
Well, what do you mean by, you mean even more mobile than my cart?
Let's say you have to go work on a boat.
I do my best to get my cart on the boat. That's why you make really good friends with the grips.
That's a lot of beer.
Yeah.
Hey, I put my cart on a helicopter.
Hey, there you go. I mean, technically everything is on this 16 terabyte SSD RAID. It's really not that big. It's a, what is it? A 2 rack U. So, I mean, I literally could just pull that out, plug it into a laptop and still have access to everything.
Is it 12 volt?
You could record a quad
12 volt,
split.
yeah.
You could record a quad split in a mobile mode to like a 7Q or something like that, and then you wouldn't have individual, but you could pipe it back out. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, so that's the quick and dirty.
And Chandler, you said exporting stills versus CDLs. You don't do that at the same time. You'd have to do that separate.
That is correct. Yes, unfortunately. So here I'll show you.
That seems like that could be added to SilverStack though, because
that would
be super easy to do, I think, because when you're looking at those thumbnails on your right column.
So here's
and you highlight all. There should just be a box that says include.
Right. So let's say this was everything in my scene. When you are in the quad view, if you do hit the take a snapshot, it will take the frame that is currently up from every single one of these shots. So if you want to just do one shot for each setup, then that perfectly does it. It takes care of all your needs. If you need to go in and do more than one, for your own reference, then you've got to go in and you've got to actually manually go through and pick all the various stills. But if you just want to get like one quick one from every single setup, all you got to do is pull it up in this multi view and then just hit hit that, and boom, now it's just pulling stills for all 8 clips.
How did you get the multiplex stills that you have in your folders?
So that is literally just full screen mode, and then I took a screen grab of my screen.
Chandler.
Yep.
They're in lab. They haven't added like a gallery section yet, have they? Like a still store?
No, not really.
Yeah, it's a real shame.
Yeah.
They need that in LiveGrade as well.
I mean, yeah, as I said, I just keep separate bins that are just my stills.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, it's another extra step, but yeah, because I mean, I like how
you just go back and like add to library.
Yep, exactly. I just do an add to library, create a separate bin that's just stills, and I import just the stills for that day.
Cool. Thanks for showing us that.
Yeah, no problem.
Anybody else got anything to add? I think we actually covered our whole agenda, which we didn't think we would get through. So if anybody has anything they want to cover, any questions, there's no stupid questions. Feel free to ask anything. There's no ridicule here. You know.
There's a little something that I thought was interesting that we didn't cover, and that is the automations manager in LiveGrade. Is anybody but me using the automations manager? Because I'm using it kind of minimally.
I use it.
Sorry for the distraction. It's Boris Johnson fighting the coronavirus.
Was that Dave? Said you were using it?
Yes.
How are you using it? How are you implementing
it? My goal is to simplify everything, and as much as I love those stream decks, I'm still driving a wave panel on my big cart, and up until 3 weeks ago, I was using it in futile attempts to make those tangent buttons work for source selectors, and of course now they do. So I was driving the router with it.
The number one thing that I've been using the automator thing for, and I actually don't use it very much, but it would work a lot if you were capturing stills off of a Blackmagic SDI or any kind of SDI video I/O, is that you can set it so that when you switch to a slot, it will form a routed
video
function.
too. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that seems to be the one real benefit I got out of that automation function that's available.
Right. I was gonna kind of just illustrate that for people if they're at all interested. I know the hour is kind of late for.
I'd like to see it, if you don't mind.
Okay.
If that's how you do your grabs, then this is a big win, because you can have a single channel of SDI input and be able to grab from numerous sources, like off of a stream deck, and you don't have to worry about making all this manual switching.
Right. So I'll illustrate. Here I have just an A and a B slot. So automations manager is here. This is nothing. Don't worry about that. So the first thing I would probably do is say, like, when I switch to slot A, and I previously have a video routing HD mini switch to A and HD mini switch to B. So the source coming into my HD mini, Blackmagic HD mini, is switched from A camera to B camera. So I can say when I switch to slot A, my video routing configuration should switch to HD mini A. That's one. When I switch to slot B, my video routing configuration should be HD mini B. So that's cool because, now when I switch from here to here, it'll switch it on my router. But the problem is my little thing is still stuck in the A slot. I've switched to B, but it didn't switch over. So then what I have to do in the automation manager is add, when I switch to slot A, video capture device move to current slot. and
They
do that
should really
again.
have that as a plus for each. Like right there should be a plus to add another event action for one thing.
This will do it. It's a little clunky, but you'll see that when I switch slots, it'll switch my video capture device. This is like if I only have one channel of video capture. I can use that one for as many slots as I want. It takes an extra second and a half for it to happen, but it actually switches my router for me and switches the thing over to the other slot. So if you want to keep things kind of light and a little bit more mobile, that's kind of a trick I use. If there's anybody that doesn't make sense to, just let me know.
I love it. It's great for portable rigs. I do all my stills graphics with Box.io, but that was the primary function that I saw that automation thing was capable of. That was like
right, and also if you're using Box.io like I do, it's cool too. But if you're like now and then I want to record something from one of the slots, I don't have to go into devices and like slide the thing around. If I'm doing 5 cameras or whatever, it's like, okay, I can just tap the slot and it just automatically switches over for me. It's nice if you don't have a whole lot of channels of input.
Just a side note, show that little icon in the bottom corner. You can disable that function. Sometimes you want to change slots, but you don't want it to do an operation.
This here. You can kill your automations. Boop, boop, boop. Or you can put your automation in. That's what you're talking about, right, Chris? Yeah. Yeah, anytime you know, that's, I mean, if you want to kill an automation individually, you can checkbox it off. Or if you just want to kill all of them, you got this guy right here. But anyway, that's just one of those little tricks I use now and then. Almost midnight here in LA, man. Fucking New York guys must be hearing the garbage trucks coming around.
Thanks for showing that.
Yeah, this was great, guys. Thanks everybody for participating. If you guys want to wrap it up, we can.
Does anyone else have any questions?
Time to peace out.
Yeah, if I will say, you know, for me personally, if anybody wants to kind of do a one-on-one or something, pretty much any night after the kids are in bed, basically, I'm down to do one of these sessions or whatever. So hit me up.
Yeah, Aaron, I'll take you up on that.
Yeah, thanks, Aaron, for all of your help.
Sure. Yeah, sure, Scott. No problem.
That's awesome, guys.
If you want a one-on-one, let's do it. Thank you. Thanks everybody, Jamie.
Man.
Thanks y'all for joining.
Awesome.
This was awesome.
Thanks, guys. I'll post this. I'll post this up soon. I'll make like a DIT-WIT YouTube or something.
You gotta make sure you fucking blur out that face.
I'm gonna put your name and address underneath his face.
Oh god.
Just watermark it.
do a fake flash burn. It'd be great.
Yeah. All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
All right, good night.
Thanks for doing it, Jamie.
Yeah,
Good
bye.
night. Good night. Good night.
Thanks very much, guys. Good night.